Chapter 660 Encounter in Antarctica. Chapter 660 Encounter in Antarctica. Yi Mo was feeling colder and colder in the water. The submarine seemed to be heading towards Antarctica. Even Yi Mo couldn't take it after being in the water for so long, and the water just kept getting colder and colder. Just when Yi Mo wanted to go to the surface to take a breathe, he felt an extreme sense of impending danger. He jumped out of the sea without hesitation, and a missile exploded at the spot he had been before. Yi Mo's face was very bad. He didn't expect to be caught already, yet he was still stupidly following this submarine and getting frozen in the sea. Yi Mo knew that it was pointless to follow the submarine anymore. The only option was to destroy it before it sent any news of him out. Thinking like that, Yi Mo shot out his flying sword without hesitation, and it turned into a white ray of death. Yi Mo wouldn't allow any news of him to be sent out whatsoever. The submarine that just floated up a little was sliced open. An immense water pressure immediately killed everyone inside. Yi Mo cursed. He had been following the sub for so long and failed at the last minute. Yi Mo came to the surface and shot a few fireballs around himself to wash away and evaporate the sea water. Looking around, he was already near Antarctica. Yi Mo went onto the ground nearby and searched around with his spirit sense. He was sure that the submarine had only discovered him at the end. It couldn't have found out about him immediately, so the submarine must have been heading to somewhere near there. But what entered Yi Mo's vision was all just snowy white. Yi Mo didn't find any place suitable for living. As sea water splashed on some rocks, they revealed the only colors that weren't white. A few penguins were slowly walking on the rocks, and Yi Mo stopped looking. Other than those animals, he really couldn't think how a normal person would be able to live there. Perhaps the submarine just wanted to stop there for a bit? Yi Mo shook his head and went on to the snow. The snow was very deep but sturdy. Yi Mo simply left 2 footprints behind, but he didn't sink in. Yi Mo walked a few steps and stopped. His gaze was set on a print next to his foot. It was very faint, and if he didn't happen to walk right there, he wouldn't have noticed it. It was clearly a footprint, so someone had passed by there before. Yi Mo looked around carefully, but there was only that footprint and nothing else. But if someone had been there, they couldn't have just left behind 1 footprint, and indeed, for meters away, Yi Mo saw another footprint. It was obviously the same person's. Someone who could travel 4 meters with 1 step? Yi Mo immediately became careful. This person was definitely an ancient martial artist if he was able to travel that far with every step. Yi Mo squatted and pressed on the footprint. It seemed a bit hard. Yi Mo soon realized that he was missing something. Although there were only 4 meters between the 2 footprints, they faced different directions. As Yi Mo kept looking, he found that this person actually crossed at least 6 or 7 meters with every step. This guy was a master. This person had come to the sea and gone back. What did he do at the seashore? When Yi Mo followed the footprints some more for a few kilometers, he finally understood. The footsteps going to the seashore seemed lighter, while the footsteps away from the seashore seemed heavier. This person must have been carrying a lot of things when he left, which meant that he had come to the seashore to hunt for food. This was someone who permanently lived there. Someone who could live in Antarctica permanently was no ordinary person. Yi Mo followed the footprint for more than 10 kilometers, at which point the tracks completely disappeared. Even Yi Mo had to commend this person for running that far to get food. Yi Mo looked carefully around the area where the footprints disappeared, but didn't find anything. He was a little disappointed. He was sure that someone was living there, because there wouldn't be such footprints otherwise. However, other than some glaciers, the most eye-catching thing around was a tall mountain in the distance. Yi Mo estimated it to be over 4,000 meters above sea level. Yi Mo came to the foot of the mountain. He believed that if that person really lived somewhere in the area, it would be there, because that would be the place he would choose to. When Yi Mo found more footprints near the foot of the mountain, he became excited. The footprints in between missing might be caused by the wind. Although there was just one footprint there, Yemo still looked around carefully. What bewildered him was that the temperature at the foot of the mountain seemed to be even colder. A few hours later, Yemo stood shocked in front of an extremely hidden valley and murmured, "Hidden formation." This was definitely something from the cultivation realm. How could it appear on Earth in Antarctica? Were there really cultivators there? Yemo suddenly thought of that Lu Inying he met at Hifong. Her grandpa had gotten a spirit gathering formation disc to grow the blue flower blue leaf grass. Theoretically, that wasn't something ancient martial artists should be capable of making. This was the second time Yemo found something related to Dao cultivation. But this formation was of a much higher level than that spirit gathering formation disc. This formation didn't require spirit stones and could self-sustain on the scarce spirit chi in the environment. Even he couldn't make such a thing at the moment. Yemo was amazed and didn't know how to deal with it. Although he could just go in, what if there was an ancient monster living inside? That would be suicide, but he would be unsatisfied if he didn't go in. He had finally found some cultivation ruins. Perhaps he could find what he needed there. The best approach would be to wait until he got stronger and then come back. But Yemo knew that if he didn't have another magical encounter or some spirit herbs, he wouldn't be able to reach a higher level. Cultivation was to seek freedom, and an opportunity was right in front of him. But he was actually afraid. Yemo thought, if I don't even dare chase after such an opportunity like this one, then even if there will be more opportunities in the future, I will never be able to get stronger. Moreover, since this person still left footprints behind, it meant that he wasn't a supreme master. Would a true master leave any footprints at all? No, he wouldn't even leave half a footprint. Thinking in that manner, Yemo didn't hesitate anymore and stepped into the hidden formation. After walking a few steps, Yemo disappeared from the valley entirely. Chapter 661. Strange Cultivator. Chapter 661. Strange Cultivator. After Yemo went inside, the temperature rose up drastically. He was shook. Inside the hidden formation, there was a heating formation. No wonder it was so much colder at the foot of the mountain. Yemo couldn't lay out either of the two formations. The reason he had come inside was to find an opportunity to get stronger. Moreover, he also believed that the person living there wouldn't be strong. Yemo was in a rocky tunnel that moment, and it was very dry due to the heating formation. On the tunnel ceiling, there was a luminous pearl every few meters. He knew that these probably weren't luminous pearls, but some kind of radiant ore. Yemo didn't continue venturing the mountain. He just scanned his spirit sense in. There were many stone rooms, and it didn't look messy. There were all sorts of food inside, including dried meat. The last stone house had a spirit sense blocking formation. It was a cultivator's home indeed. Yemo was excited. He wondered if the person had come from somewhere else like him, or from Earth. Since he was already there, he needed to meet this person. Furthermore, he knew it was too late to leave now. Entering the hidden formation meant that the person inside could see him. But Yemo wasn't as nervous as before. There weren't any offensive or defensive formations in there. From this, he could tell that the person wasn't a master. A master's cultivation home would definitely have defensive formations. Yemo walked to the spirit sense blocked room and said, "I'm Yemo. I happen to walk by this place. Could I know this Dao friend's name?" After a long silence, a hoarse voice spoke. "Come in." It was Chinese. Yemo locked his flying sword with a spirit sense and entered the room. There was a man sitting in the middle of the room with a huge sea lion next to him. It was long dead, but there was still blood in the man's mouth. It was obvious that the man was injured because his chi wave was very unstable. It might have been caused by not cultivating properly. When Yemo checked the man's power, his heart sunk. He couldn't tell how powerful the man was. The only explanation was that the man was much stronger than him. "Did you also walk in accidentally?" the man asked. Yi-Mo was dazed. Since this person was a cultivator and stronger than him, there's no way he wouldn't know that this place was a hidden formation. It seemed that he had also walked in there accidentally. Was he testing him or something? Yi-Mo looked confusedly at the man. Suddenly, he realized that he might really not know that it was a hidden formation, because he might have never scanned his power with his spirit sense. Perhaps the man had come in there by accident, found a cultivation method, and started cultivating there. Thinking about this, Yi-Mo could rest assured. He immediately nodded. That's right. I came to Antarctica for a holiday, and I accidentally walked in here. I didn't expect to find this. You're lying! The man suddenly looked at Yi-Mo coldly. You're definitely not here for a holiday. Yi-Mo was shook. Had he been testing him before? But after hearing this, Yi-Mo understood at once that it was because he didn't have a backpack. No matter whether the man had randomly found this place or had been taken there by his master, Yi-Mo no longer wanted to know. Other than a few formations, he hadn't seen anything else. There was no point staying there. He hadn't found anything that could help him in there. Instead, he had encountered someone stronger than him. Even though this person was injured, he didn't want to mess with him. My things are outside. I'm leaving, goodbye. Yi-Mo immediately started retreating. But just as Yi-Mo moved, the man suddenly punched him. He couldn't even dodge it and was smashed into the wall. He spat out blood. His organs were burning. Is he at Qi gathering tertiary stage? Yi-Mo was shook. He was only at Qi gathering middle stage, while the man was almost at peak stage. It was just a step away from foundation establishment. Yi-Mo suspected that the man didn't know how to reach foundation establishment, so that's why he had failed ascending. Yi-Mo's heart sunk. He had no way to get out alive against someone of this caliber. Yi-Mo covered his mouth and swallowed a lotus life pill. You didn't die, the man said when he saw that Yi-Mo was fine after just spitting some blood. He was dazed. You also cultivate ancient martial arts. Are you at Earth level? The man asked. Although the man's tone was calm, he was very shocked. Due to his injuries, his blood was running uncontrollably. Although he could finish up and kill Yi-Mo, if he didn't calm his blood and qi down, he would suffer greatly, even if he killed this person. If it had been a week ago, he could have still killed Yi-Mo. But now his qi was attacking him more and more. He could barely go out to look for food. Yi-Mo had understood. The man really didn't understand cultivation. He didn't even know how to check power. Perhaps he didn't even have his own magic artifact or new basic fireball arts. He was just fighting him with his qi. Thinking about this, Yi-Mo relaxed a bit, but said coldly, It's none of your business. You're too shameless. I've never met you. Yet you try to kill me straight away. Is this the Tao you cultivate? And, of course I'm going to kill you. Do you think you can leave after finding out about this place? Keep dreaming. Moreover, I need your blood to cultivate. How could I let you go? But if you answer my questions, I can leave your body intact, the man said calmly while slowing down his qi. Yi-Mo was angry. But still, even if the man didn't know magic, his stage was far higher than his. Despite him being injured, Yi-Mo might not be able to kill him with his flying sword. He could easily block it. Yi-Mo only had one chance, and he needed to use it well. Yi-Mo didn't understand how someone who didn't understand cultivation at all could reach qi gathering peak. Even with a good cultivation method and an absurd talent, he shouldn't be able to do that without spirit qi. Okay, I will answer your questions and give you a treasure map, but you need to answer a few of mine first, Yi-Mo said. The man sneered. Since you're giving me new blood and you're an ancient martial artist, I can answer a few questions. Shoot. First of all, which cultivation method are you using? How is it this strong? Second, why are you drinking blood? Don't worry, I will still give you a treasure map. Yi-Mo put emphasis on the treasure map. The man looked coldly at Yi-Mo and said, Do you think I want a treasure map? Even if you give me all the things in the world, you wouldn't understand my purpose. As for what I'm cultivating, you wouldn't understand it even if you died. It's the Tao of long life. Your ancient martial arts are just trash in front of mine. If I hadn't failed at achieving foundation establishment, I could have crushed you with one finger." Yi Emo was shook. This guy had failed at reaching foundation establishment indeed. But at the same time, Yi Emo felt at ease. There really weren't many people who knew Tao cultivation. This guy out of luck had found a cultivation method in that blessed land. He didn't even know what cultivation was, or any magic technique. Otherwise, he would be dead for sure. Yi Emo asked again, "That means you're the only one cultivating this Tao of long life?" The man fell silent for a moment and then shook his head. "No, my martial brother and I found a book together. We memorized the content and cultivated together. But he attacked me for those pills, so I escaped the pocket real dash." Suddenly, the man seemed to remember something and said, "You don't need to know about that. Prepare to die." Chapter 662. Do you know this? Chapter 662. Do you know this? Seeing the man about to attack, Yi Emo was worried. He knew that even though his opponent didn't know any magic, nor did he have a magic artifact, Yi Emo still wouldn't be able to beat him. The difference was too great. Thankfully, he paused after one punch. If he hadn't, Yi Emo would have been heavily injured, if not dead. Yi Emo didn't know that the guy couldn't attack too many times. "Slow down. See if this is a treasure or not." Yi Emo gave his flying sword to the man. He knew that if he shot it at him, the man would be able to grab it before it even damaged him. Humph! The man grabbed the flying sword, and it gave him a very strange feeling. What sword was this? He had seen a couple of the top 10 legendary swords of China, but never something like this. He tried piercing the ground with it, and it sliced at the ground like it was cutting tofu. Good sword. He could feel that this sword was different. He sent some of his chi into the flying sword, and the flying sword hummed. The man's face changed, and he got up excitedly. This thing seemed to be made just for him. "This is a top-grade magic artifact. Where did you get it?" the man suddenly asked. When Yi Emo gave the flying sword to the man, he was very anxious. If this man could figure out that it was his flying sword and wiped his spirit sense off it, Yi Emo would be a goat waiting to be slaughtered. But it was a calculated gamble. He was betting on the man, not knowing of the flying swords in the cultivation realm. It seemed he had gambled right. At least the guy hadn't wiped his spirit sense mark off it. That meant that he didn't know how to control weapons of the cultivation realm. Yi Emo relaxed internally and said, "This treasure map points towards that place. It's a pity that I could only enter the outskirts and couldn't properly go inside, so I only got this sword." Hearing this, the man's eyes started gleaming. Yi Emo knew that he was interested. There was no way he wouldn't be. "Give me that treasure map, and I will let you live," the man demanded coldly. Yi Emo said, "Of course I can give it to you, but you should trade something for it. How about you give me the location of where you got your things?" "Okay," the man replied. "I got everything from Xingjia Mountain. My martial brother and I at the time dashed." Before he finished, he suddenly pierced at Yi Emo with the sword. He thought that since the treasure map had to be on Yi Emo, if he killed Yi Emo, he would easily get it. Yi Emo didn't expect the guy to attack him without telling him anything. But luckily he was using his flying sword, so Yi Emo had sensed the attack through his flying sword and immediately evaded it. Before the man could understand how Yi Emo managed to do that, the flying sword suddenly slipped out of his hand and sliced at his throat. The man covered his throat in shock, staring at the flying sword as it flew behind Yi Emo. He couldn't say anything. Yi Emo knew he was too lucky. The man had actually attacked him with his own flying sword. If he had used his fists again, Yi Emo wouldn't have been able to dodge it. This is a flying sword artifact of the cultivation realm. You dare spout that you cultivate the Tao of longevity with that petty knowledge of yours? Yi Emo sneered. Suddenly, a fireball amassed into his hand. "Do you know about this?" The man's eyes were full of shock, confusion, and realization. But all he could do was gurgle before dying. Yi Emo wiped his sweat. He was too lucky today, but it was a pity that the man didn't tell him more about that Xingjia mountain. Yemo was sure that he and his martial brother had found a cultivation ruin. Just when Yemo thought this guy had nothing of value on him and was about to burn him away with a fireball, he found that the platform the man had been sitting on was hollow. Yemo grabbed it and ripped it apart, revealing a card and 2 books. There were a few jade bottles too, but those were all empty. Yemo opened one and smelled it, and his face changed immediately. It was the smell of the Great Qi Increasing Pill. No wonder this guy could reach the peak of Qi gathering. He had consumed so many of the pills, while the Great Qi Increasing Pill was a pill foundation establishment state cultivators used. Yemo put down the bottle thinking it was a pity and looked at the 2 books. There were 2 books, one of which was the Black Ice Chant. Yemo opened it, and it was a Tao cultivation method that was indeed suited for people with a water spirit root. This guy must have had a water spirit root. It wasn't of much use to Yemo, but it was the first real Tao cultivation method he had seen on Earth. Yemo looked at the second book, which was titled Tai True Understanding. This was a peak-level ancient martial arts cultivation method, but Yemo wasn't interested. Yemo wondered if it was related to the Tai sect. Yemo then looked at the card. It had the words Tai and was signed Elder. So this guy was a Tai sect elder. So this meant that the Tai True Understanding was the Tai sect's cultivation method. Yemo immediately felt interested. He was going to get revenge on the Tai sect sooner or later, and he knew that there were quite a lot of masters there, even great heaven masters. Hence, he wouldn't let this cultivation method go unstudied for sure. Yemo started reading it and remembered some of the moves and secret techniques. When Yemo flipped to the last page, he saw a diagram. 7-star formation. Yemo felt like he had already had enough surprises, but now there was one more surprising thing. The diagram was a bit old, but it clearly showed how to come in and out of the formation. Other than the loosening of the gates every few decades, it also mentioned some other special means to go in and out. Yemo was sure that the reason why the guy had been able to go in and out was because he had this diagram. This meant that Xingjia mountain had to be in the inner world as well. Other than waiting for decades, there were 2 ways of getting in. One was to find Qi stones, 7 of them. Yemo ignored this method, because if he had that many spirit stones, he would just use them to reach the tertiary stage of stage 5. The second way was to find someone with a wisdom root and have that person's blood be absorbed by the Tian composition of the formation, after which you can enter the formation. Yemo finally understood. So the wisdom root was the spirit root that was needed. That nun, Jiesun, had tried to use this method last time, but she had only found Wei Yongqian and failed. Either his spirit root was inadequate or something else went wrong. But Yemo couldn't use either of the methods. He had no spirit stones, and he wouldn't allow innocent people to be sucked dry either. Helplessly, Yemo burned the man to ashes and looked around the other rooms. After he was certain there was nothing else he could take, he walked out of the place. Just when Yemo was about to leave on his flying sword, he seemingly heard some screams in the distance. Chapter 663. Big Explosion. Chapter 663. Big Explosion. Yemo thought he had heard wrong at first, but when he heard it for the second time, he knew he was right. There really was someone screaming. Yemo flew into the sky, and he saw in the distance a tornado forming a swirl, like blizzard. The snow from the peak of the mountain was falling like a waterfall. A few people in red and blue were running around and screaming. Luckily, there still was some distance between them and the tornado, and they hadn't gotten blown away. Yemo was speechless. He didn't know why these people were there, but it's not like him could leave them to die. Just when he was going to save them, the tornado disappeared and the avalanche stopped. Although they were fine now, Yemo still decided to land and walk to them. Once he was near them, he saw that they were 6 people, 3 guys and 3 women. 2 blue tents were stationed a little further away. They stared at Yi Mo approaching them. They looked strangely at that young man that didn't carry anything and came to them carelessly. "Are you guys all right?" Yi Mo casually asked. He saw that their things and the tent had the words Beijing University. What shocked them even more was that even though they were all wearing thick clothes, this young man only had a thin layer of clothes on him. He could still talk and casually ask if they were all right. After a moment, a round-faced girl said, "We're fine now. Do you need help?" Yi Mo realized that they thought he needed help since he had come over empty-handed. Yi Mo laughed. "Since you're all fine, I'll leave. Goodbye." "Wait." The prettiest girl stopped Yi Mo and took out a jacket from the tent. "Did you lose your jacket? It's minus 20 degrees here. You will freeze to death if you wear just that." Yi Mo realized that it was his clothes that shocked them. He quickly waved his hand. "It's fine. I've been training my body, so I don't mind the cold. I just heard people calling for help, so I came over." It was truly cold, but because it was so cold, the qi in his body would run meridian cycles by itself. This benefited his cultivation. Oh, right, it was Ihi who called. "What happened, Ihi?" The round-faced girl's words brought their attention to a girl who was vomiting on the side. One of the guys was carefully patting her back. "Dead people. I saw a lot of dead people. So many dash," she cried as she said. Her eyes were full of horror. Yi Mo heard this, and his expression changed. He immediately scanned his spirit sense out, but it was already outside of his range. He wanted to fly over, but he realized he shouldn't do it in front of them. "What dead people? He be more specific?" a tall, well-built man asked. At this moment, the man patting Ihi said, "Don't worry, talk slowly. There's a lot of people here." Ihi drank some water and then took her time to calm down. She cleared her thoughts and said, "Halfway up the mountain, I used the telescope to look into the distance, and I saw a huge ditch. Inside it was full of dead people. Sob dash." He pointed into the distance. There really seemed to be a huge snow ditch there, but one couldn't see clearly at the foot of the mountain. "That's impossible. You can see from so far away," the tall guy frowned. He grabbed the man next to her and said, "It's true. I saw it. I really did. There were many people laying on top of each other. They must have been dead." "I'll go have a look," the tall man said and picked up a telescope. "Chen Guang, don't go there." What if Dash, the round-faced girl, saw that the tall guy was going to go and quickly stopped him? Yi Mo felt something wasn't right. How could there be that many dead people there? He thought of the submarine he had annihilated. Was their base there? Thinking about this, Yi Mo said to them, "Wait here, I will go have a look." Yi Mo explained again, seeing their worried and confused looks. "I'm a mountain climber, so I'll be fine. I will tell you the situation after I come back." Ji Qi, that man says he's a mountain climber, but he's wearing few clothes and he doesn't have any tools. Is he for real? How can he stay here for this long with such few clothing and still be fine? Would he be Dash, the round-faced girl said. Although the sun was still up, her words still made everyone shiver. It was too abnormal for such a person to appear in Antarctica. "Let's pack our things and contact the tourist group." "We can't act alone anymore," the tall man seemed to agree. Ji Qi shook her head and said, "Probably not. I've heard my grandpa say that there's a group of people who cultivate ancient martial arts in China. They have powers. Perhaps that man cultivates ancient martial arts. If he is, it's normal that he can resist the cold." "Are ancient martial arts that strong?" the guy next to Ihi asked. The weak guy who hadn't been talking said, "It is. Ancient martial arts are much stronger than this." "Dongfang Wang, how do you know? Have you seen this online as well?" the guy next to Ihi asked. The feeble guy didn't reply. Instead, he looked at Yi Mo and frowned. Seeing this, no one kept talking, and they just stared at Yi Mo from the distance. Yi Mo could move a lot faster after he left them behind. He only took half an hour to get to the place he had mentioned. Even without scanning his spirit sense down, he could see what was inside. Although the ditch was very deep, The sunlight brightened the inside. There were at least tens of bodies. He was right. This place was an actual body ditch. Yi Mo scanned his spirit sense in. He found that many of these bodies had been experimented with. He immediately figured out that Northern Sand had a base there indeed. However, it probably wasn't their HQ. Still, he had to find the base. Just when Yi Mo was about to spread out his spirit sense and look for Northern Sand's base, he felt watched. He suddenly turned around and caught a sniper rifle bullet. At the same time, he disappeared from where he was. When he got to the sniper, he was dead. Yi Mo sneered. The submarine incident must have been leaked. Due to that cultivation home, he had wasted a night. Perhaps these people were planning their retreat now. Yi Mo searched the place inch by inch with his spirit sense again. Not long after that, he found a place that was different. It was a ditch with accumulated snow. But before he could go inside to search, he strongly sensed danger under his feet. Without thinking, Yi Mo rose into the sky. Rumble! As soon as Yi Mo took off, there was a huge explosion below him. It was as though the mountain had been tipped upside down. Under Yi Mo's spirit sense, all those testing platforms, laboratories, and machines were instantly blown to pieces. Yi Mo's expression looked bad. These people were decisive indeed. Even the mountain was being blown apart. He had found Northern Sand's base, but the result was the same as not finding it. He even believed that Luo Yu's main enemy in the future wasn't going to be the U.S., but North Sand, its hidden enemy. Yi Mo didn't understand why these people wouldn't let him enter the laboratory and then blow it up together with him. The only explanation was that they feared him a lot. They feared letting him in, taking the things, and then the bomb not being able to kill him. Chapter 664. Meeting Dongfang Again. Chapter 664. Meeting Dongfang again, hearing the thunderous explosion. Those Beijing University students gazed in shock as snow flew into the sky. They could only see a big, white patch of mist. The place he had pointed at was now completely covered by an avalanche. Would that young guy still be able to live? That wasn't just an avalanche. It seems like there was some TNT buried there, Dongfang Wang said after a while. And Jiqi fell into silence and said after a long while, after such a huge explosion and an avalanche, I don't know if he dash. Everyone knew that she meant that the guy might not be alive anymore. He seems fine. Look, he's walking over, that round-faced girl Fuli said. How is that possible? He survived that explosion. Is he a god or something? The man next to he sighed. Yi Mo walked up to them and smiled. I'm no god. I had already left the mountain when the explosion happened. The avalanche is quite big, though, so I think you guys should leave. Then Yi Mo paused and said, There's quite a lot of good places in China anyway. Why come all the way to Antarctica? Well then, I'll be leaving. Goodbye. Wait. Big brother, I haven't asked for your name. I'm Jiqi. The short one there is called Xiaodong, and the girl next to him is He. That tall guy is called Qinguang, and Fu Li is next to him. That skinnier guy is called Dongfang Wang. We're all students of Beijing University. This is Chen Guang's second time in Antarctica, by the way, and Jiqi introduced. Dongfang Wang. Yi Mo thought for a bit. Hearing this name, he immediately thought of Dongfang Shi and Dongfang Tang. Dongfang Shi didn't really look like Dongfang Tang, but this Dongfang Wang actually looked like both Dongfang Shi and Dongfang Tang. Through this, Yi Mo could immediately see that the three were related. They must be the three brothers of the Dongfang family. Why are you going quiet? Seeing Yi Mo's silence, and Jiqi subconsciously asked. Yi Mo smiled. I'm MOing. By the way, Dongfang Wang, have we met somewhere before? You seem familiar. The students saw Yi Mo ignore the pretty girl and Jiqi to talk to Dongfang Wang, and looked at him strangely. Even Jiqi raised her mouth in unsatisfaction. Seeing Dongfang Wang look at him in shock, Yi Mo knew he was being too abrupt. He immediately said, Perhaps I'm mistaken, but I have seen someone who looks like you. Dongfang Wang scanned Yi Mo and said expressionlessly, You are right. but since you know them, you must be no simple person. One of them is called Dongfang Shi, and the other is called Dongfang Tang. You might have seen one of them, or maybe even both. Yi Mo thought that's the case indeed. Dongfang Shi and him had great enmity, though, and even though he had already killed that guy, he still felt like Dongfang Shi had gotten off easy. Should he kill this Dongfang Wang? He had no reason to let someone from the Dongfang family go. Last time, that Dongfang Tang tricked him and ran away. The first thing he would do when he had the opportunity was to deal with that Dongfang Tang. But Yi Mo thought that he should let this Dongfang Wang go. At least he never did anything bad to him, so it didn't seem appropriate to kill him. Thinking about this, Yi Mo suddenly asked, Dongfang Wang, those two are your brothers, right? They aren't simple people. Do you know what they do? Dongfang Wang sneered, I never thought of them as my brothers. My surname is just Dongfang, and I have nothing to do with the Dongfang family, so don't drag me in with them. I am me and they are them. His tone was truly cold. Yi Mo thought, were these brothers fighting or is something else up? Although Yi Mo knew he had no reason to kill Dongfang Wang, he still didn't feel comfortable. Dongfang Shi and Dongfang Tang were his enemies. Who knew if this Dongfang Wang wouldn't become one? Dongfang Wang looked at Yi Mo and suddenly said, I know that you must be someone capable to be able to appear in Antarctica like this. But I would like to say that if you kill me because of Dongfang Tang and Dongfang Shi, I really won't have died a proper death. And Jiqi looked at Yi Mo and Dongfang Wang. Why was their conversation this weird? Why did it involve killing? Were they not on Earth anymore? Yi Mo realized that this Dongfang Wang had noticed his killing intent, but he smiled and didn't say anything else. He felt like this Dongfang Wang was too smart. Other than sensing his killing intent, he had comprehended from his casual words that he had enmity with his brothers. The people from the Dongfang family were really smart. Were every one of them like this? Seeing Yi Mo's silence, Dongfang Wang suddenly said, We share the same father, but not the same mother. After my father died, my mother and I were kicked out of the Dongfang family. I'm no longer a part of the Dongfang family. Your enmity with them has nothing to do with me. I only have one kin, which is my mother. But I can tell you one thing. The ancestor of the Dongfang family is from Xitang, and the ultimate dream of the Dongfang family is to go back to Xitang. Nonetheless, that has nothing to do with me. Yi Mo no longer had the intent to kill Dongfang Wang after talking to him. Dongfang Wang hadn't shown any intentions of wanting to do anything to Yi Mo yet. But even if he did, Yi Mo wouldn't be afraid. If he killed Dongfang Wang now, it would show that he was scared. That wasn't good for his Dao heart. But at the same time, Dongfang Wang had already tested him, so he could kill him. Dongfang Wang's words were strange, though. Yi Mo had been to most places in China, but had never heard of Xitang. Sai, I don't understand anything you guys are saying. Let's just leave this place first. The tour group has sent us a message. Fu Li saw that the atmosphere was tense and said something to ease the tension. Yi Mo looked at them and smiled. He was going to leave. Soon, Yi Mo's figure disappeared from the glacier. Yi Mo then called Sui Huahua and made her investigate Dongfang Tang. He really wanted to know what Dongfang Tang had been up to. He felt like the things that were happening in Luo were very strange this time. It was a series of things, just like when Dongfang Shi was scheming against him. There were plots inside of plots. Chapter 665, Dead Island. Chapter 665, Dead Island. Dongfang Wang looked at Yi Mo's disappearing figure and felt that his hands were full of sweat. He was very smart and had strong instincts. He could really feel Yi Mo's killing intent in that instant when Jiqi said that his name was Dongfang Wang. So Dongfang Wang said what he could to make Yi Mo understand that he had nothing to do with Dongfang Shi and Dongfang Tang. When Yi Mo asked Sui Huahua about Dongfang Tang, She quickly gave a precise answer. She had already investigated Dongfang Tang. From Sui Wehua, Yemo found out that the Blue Ray Corporation had been infighting a few months earlier. Ku Yu and Edward died due to the chaos, and the Blue Ray Corporation was broken apart. Meanwhile, Dongfang Tang and his men disappeared after the discord. Hearing this, Yi Emo had a very bad feeling. He felt that whether it was the Special Forces elites disappearing on Ice Helm Island, or the incidents that happened to Luo Yu, or even the actual war, all might have had something to do with Dongfang Tang. If all that had really been planned by someone, then their method was too similar to Dongfang Shi's past methods. If it wasn't for Dongfang Shi being dead, he would be the first Yemo would suspect, but he was definitely dead, so Yemo's primary suspect was Dongfang Tang. If the recent events had something to do with Dongfang Tang, then that meant he might have joined Northern Sand. How are things with the US and the UK? Yemo asked. Su Yuehua said in a light tone. Mr. Rod's wife and daughter spoke out on TV, and the meeting between the US and the UK became very short. There has been no official news about it yet, but the UK's Prime Minister left the US quickly, and there is no news from India either. Su Yuehua hesitated before saying, "But Mrs. Rod doesn't want to leave Luo Yu yet. She said she would be waiting for you to come back to discuss some things." Hearing this, Yemo's head began to hurt. He knew there was some problem with this Mrs. Rod, but he had no clue what it could be. No matter what secret she had, Yemo didn't want to come in contact with such people. As long as she had no ill will towards Luo Yu, he just wanted her to leave as soon as possible. But if she didn't want to leave, he couldn't really kick her away. Hence, Yemo said with annoyance, "I will go to Ice Helm Island now. Keep them in check." "Don't you want to say something to Luo Ying and Ning Qingxiwe?" Su Yuehua subconsciously asked. She was thinking how Yemo was going to go there. That was quite a long distance, yet Yemo didn't ask for any help. Hearing this, Yemo said, "My phone is almost out of battery. I will talk to them when I'm back." Su Yuehua laughed, and Yemo quickly said, "Hey, don't misunderstand. Also, you need to keep Yixing and company safe. We can release the restrictions on immigration, but if anyone tries to go near Luo Yu's research and scientist residence area, immediately apprehend them, throw them into jail, and wait for me to deal with them." After this war, Yemo felt that Luo Yu really had too little population. He believed that Luo Yu's population should be somewhere in between 5 and 10 million. Only then would Luo Yu not fear any single power, or even everyone ganging up on them. But the latter wouldn't happen anyway. Despite Luo Yu's diplomacy not being the best, they wouldn't have no allies at all. "By the way, investigate for me where Shi Tang is. It should be somewhere in China, but I've never heard about it before," Yemo said. Yemo suddenly realized something. The three brothers were called Dongfang Shi, Dongfang Tang, and Dongfang Wang. If you put the last parts of their names together, you had Shi Tang Wang, meaning Shi Tang King. That should be just a coincidence, right? Yemo frowned and muttered. Dongfang Wang had told him all that to keep himself alive, fearing that Yemo would turn back to kill him. But Dongfang Wang had underestimated Yemo, as Yemo didn't even need to put in that effort if he wanted to kill someone. Yemo could tell that although Dongfang Wang wasn't as experienced as Dongfang Shi and Dongfang Tang, his mind was very clear. If he weren't so bleak, and if he weren't from the Dongfang family, Yemo would really want to bring him to Luo Yu. Although the conditions were still very stringent, Luo Yu once again welcomed immigration. However, every person had to be checked before being able to come. There were all sorts of requirements, yet this didn't stop people from wanting to migrate to Luo Yu. Due to the war, Luo Yu had gotten large amounts of compensation and had many facilities and organizations established. These facilities were all designed by Yixing and were all world-class. Compared to Luo Yu's rising prevalence, the U.S. president wanted to puke blood. Someone had just made the perfect chance for him to attack Luo Yu, but it was crushed before he could use it. That Mrs. Rod was saved, and she had condemned the U.S. on live TV. That way, there was no way the U.K. could start a war. Even though the U.S. didn't have an excuse to start war anymore, the U.S. wouldn't allow Luoyu to choke their throat for their maritime route into the Indian Ocean. So they also had to negotiate with Luoyu to get them to leave Jason Giambi Island. Yi Mo knew he wasn't good at politics, and he didn't have time to deal with it either. So he left all matters completely to Su Yuehua and company. He felt very confident in them. His current target was clear. He would to go to Icehelm Island and find Zhang Ju and Li Hu. Then he would come back and get married with Luo Ying and Ning Qingxue. Afterwards, he would try to find spirit stones and try to enter the pocket world in 1 or 2 years. To cover the distance from the South Pole to the North Pole, even with Yimo's power, he still had to use an essence chi pill. Yi Mo used the map Han Zaixin had given him, and by the time he found the island, the sky was already gray. Yi Mo didn't know if it was day or night. Yi Mo stood in the air above the island and looked at the barren rocks with snow here and there. This was an icy island, but it wasn't a glacier. Han Zaixin had said it looked like a helmet, but Yi Mo couldn't really tell. Around the island were fleets with all kinds of flags, but none of those fleets neared the island. It would seem that something did happen indeed, Yi Mo murmured to himself, and he landed on the yellow rock. As soon as he stepped foot there, he noticed that the atmosphere had a very strange feeling to it. It was the feeling of death and silence. Chapter 666. Stuck in a Desperate Situation. Chapter 666. Stuck in a desperate situation, Yi Mo didn't know that at that very moment, somewhere on a distant ship, 3 men and 2 women were watching a particular surveillance screen. When Yi Mo's figure appeared on the screen, they all looked at each other in shock and didn't know what to say. He really does have the power to mysteriously go everywhere in the world. There's actually such a mutant power in this world. If I didn't see it for myself, I wouldn't believe it, one woman said. Another person broke the dense atmosphere and said, "No matter how strong he is, he'll be dead soon." No one replied because they all believed that was right. When Yi Mo entered the island, he would be dead for sure. The other woman was shocked too. She didn't expect she would know the man on the screen. She thought Yi Mo was just an ancient martial arts master, but apparently he had the ability to go wherever he wanted without using any machine. This woman was the advisor of the Hong martial gang's leader, Huang Mei. It could be said that the reason why the Hong martial gang had been able to attain its status in San Francisco was all due to her. Ever since she realized that Zhu Hongxing couldn't achieve big things, though, she left the Hong martial gang. She even looked for Yi Mo later on, but never found him. Then, somehow Northern Sand heard of her and invited her. Although she had been in gangs, she didn't really know much about Northern Sand. The only thing she knew was that Northern Sand was very powerful and that they had many scientific research bases. They proclaimed they were creating a peaceful world. But after Huang Mei joined Northern Sand, she realized that this organization was set on destroying all the countries in the world and establishing a dictatorship. The way they did things and earned money didn't seem peaceful at all. It was full of slaughters and schemes. Huang Mei long since wanted to leave Northern Sand, but she understood that Northern Sand was easy to join but hard to leave. This time she had come with the Northern Sand people to do a mission disguised as a Japanese fleet. She knew that this would be her only chance to escape, but she also knew that if she failed, she would be dead. Huang Mei wanted to save Yi Mo and run away, but she knew that it was impossible to do that. Yi Mo was on the island, and she had no way to contact him. Huang Mei didn't completely know the layout of the island, but she knew at least some things. She knew that it would be indeed very hard for Yi Mo to escape after going there. When these people had laid the traps, they had even calculated Yi Mo's character into them. Even if she couldn't save Yi Mo, she didn't want to stay in Northern Sand anymore. And if she wanted to run, she had to grasp this opportunity. But other than her, there were 4 more people there. She needed to kill the other 4 as quickly as she could and leave, all the while not startling anyone else. Yi Mo had been to many islands, but he had never seen a place like this island, which gave him a sense of death and emptiness. Even in Antarctica, he could feel some life, but there was truly no life there. He was sure that even if he found Zhang Ju and Li Hu there, they would be bodies and definitely not living people. Yi Mo also felt that the island was very dangerous, but he couldn't tell why exactly. Yi Mo walked along the rocks for half an hour and finally understood why Han Zixin had said that the island was actually only a few thousand square kilometers. The island was linked to countless glaciers, but the actual land mass wasn't big. After checking things, he realized that the proper island was at most 100 square kilometers. It wasn't tiny, but northern sand would never build its base in such a place and let it be revealed. This was a trap, although Yi Mo didn't know if it was for the Special Forces elites or not, but he had a bad feeling. Knowing that this was a glacier group, Yi Mo didn't go investigate the large patches of glaciers, because he felt that even if there were any secrets on the island, it wouldn't be on the glaciers. He needed to check the land. 100 SQKM wasn't small, but under Yi Mo's investigation, everything was soon checked. Yi Mo stopped in a particular valley. The place was a mess and there were many buildings, but it was all lifeless. At the end of the valley was a tunnel. Yi Mo let his spirit sense out and was ready to enter the tunnel, but just when his spirit sense reached the area right next to the tunnel, he found a half-eroded military knife. Yi Mo walked up and studied it, and it seemed to have pierced into something before it rusted. All those people might have disappeared down this tunnel. Yi Mo sighed. If they really did, then he didn't need to keep looking, because this place was also lifeless. But since he was there, he knew that he should go have a look. Yi Mo was very careful, even though he was a Dao cultivator. He stood at the door to the tunnel and felt his heart shake. Even when he had been pointed at by a gun, he had never felt this feeling. It was just too strange and made him very uncomfortable. He thought of the danger he felt when he entered this island and felt even more uncomfortable. When he thought for a bit, however, he decided to go in nonetheless. If he didn't even have the courage to look around for a bit, that would be being too timid. Before he went in, though, he put an essence chi pill and a lotus life pill in his mouth and wrapped them in chi to prevent them from melting. After making sure there was no danger nearby, he started walking in slowly. 10 minutes later, Yi Mo reached the end of the tunnel, and there was nothing but a big hole. This hole reached down, and there were stairs. It was exactly the same as the submarine tunnel on Bali. Yi Mo sent his spirit sense down, and the tunnel seemed different from the one back then. After his spirit sense reached the end, there was a submarine as well, but Yi Mo's face immediately turned bad. It was filled with things Yi Mo had never seen before. Yi Mo's first thought was that they must have done all that to target him and blow him up. If that was the case, then they must have guessed some of his power and made this trap especially for him. But that didn't make sense. How did they know he would come? And would they use such big means to take him out? Yi Mo didn't understand and wanted to just leave immediately, because even he couldn't deal with that many explosions at the same time. Just when he wanted to turn around, however, he felt something wasn't right. If he didn't go in and their plan went to waste with just that, wouldn't that be a pretty bad plan? He thought of that Dongfang Shi, and if someone was targeting him, their plan wouldn't be that simple. He thought for a moment and carefully scanned his spirit sense around. When he understood what everything around him was, his face turned very bad. The rocks around him and the tunnel were all artificial and had only been disguised as normal rocks. At this moment, Yi Mo sweated. He wanted to turn around and run, but he stopped himself and calmed down. Although he didn't see any cameras, he was sure that he was being watched. If he turned, perhaps this place would explode immediately. No matter how fast he was, he wouldn't be able to escape that. Chapter 667. How to Leave. Chapter 667. How to leave. The reason why they hadn't detonated the bomb was not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't know what trump cards he might have. They wanted to wait until he entered that hole, and they would have greater confidence to kill him. Thinking about this, Yi Mo became even calmer. Ever since he'd embarked upon the path of cultivation, he had faced too many dangers and unknowns, but never had he been surrounded like today. Yi Mo knew that if everything around him exploded, then even if he were at the foundation establishment state, he might not be able to survive such an explosion. The person who buried the bomb had actually overestimated him and wanted to wait until he went into the black hole before blowing the place up. Understanding that, Yi Mo could only carefully walk into the black hole. Watching the screen, Huang Mei's face changed. She also saw that the man holding the controller wanted to detonate it immediately. "Chi Huan," he went in. "You can do it," that woman immediately said as she saw Yi Mo go in. Even though Yi Mo was completely surrounded by bombs, they still weren't sure whether they would kill him. The man called Chi Huan stared at the screen and said, "Wait a bit longer. Once he's completely in, I will press it 10 seconds later. By then, no matter how strong he is, he will be dead for sure." Huang Mei stood at the back and carefully touched the knife in her pocket. Although she had a gun too, she knew she only ranked third in power there. The black hole was Northern Sand's trap for that untraceable man. The man who made Northern Sand unable to rest easy. The 2 extreme energy stones had disappeared, and not long ago, the eerie scene on the auction ship happened, and the Black Sun Empire's gold reserves suddenly disappeared. Moreover, America's gold reserves were also robbed. This all showed that someone had the ability to appear and disappear out of nowhere. Lu Lin had been suspected the most for the extreme energy stones, but that was proven to have been nonsense. Many guessed that it was Yi Mo, but many thought it impossible too. When she finally saw Yi Mo's figure, she realized that it was indeed Yi Mo who was behind all of that. At this moment, Huang Mei was shocked at the advisor who had guessed it. Only he had guessed it and set up a series of plans against Yi Mo and Luo Yu. According to the advisor, not only should Yi Mo be a part of Luo Yu, but he was probably also one of the city lords, if not the actual highest in command. So, everything the advisor did was to force out that mysterious master. She didn't have the status to receive all that information, but she was smart and had guessed it from her conversations with other people and taking into account all that had happened. If Yi Mo was really the commander of Luo Yu, then he must not die, and his identity as the mysterious master mustn't be revealed. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to go to Luo Yu and expand her ambitions. If someone like that died, it would be a heavy blow to Luo Yu. And if the U.S. knew that Luo Yu had stolen their gold, they would think of any way possible to wage war with Luo Yu. Huang Mei was calculating when the best moment to make her move would be. Once Yi Mo completely entered the black hole, that would be when the guy with the controller would be the most focused on the screen. That would be the best time to attack. That time quickly came. When Yi Mo completely disappeared into the black hole, Huang Mei immediately pulled out her dagger and gun. Huang Mei's actions were quick, but the others weren't slow either. The moment she shot out her knife and pulled out her gun, the woman next to her felt something wasn't right and also quickly pulled out her gun. Huang Mei knew that it was best to kill the person next to her and then kill the guy controlling the remote. She knew that if she wasted even a little time, the bomb would go off. The moment Huang Mei's knife struck the man controlling the remote, her gun also went off. She killed 2 people as quickly as she could, as she took them by surprise. Huang Mei knew that her actions would be noticed. She couldn't dodge bullets, but her wits saved her again. The instant she fired, she slanted her body to the left and shot at the woman next to her. As Huang Mei moved aside, there was a clear bang, and a bullet passed by Huang Mei's waist at the same time as Huang Mei's bullet pierced the woman's chest. Immediately 3 dead and 1 injured. That last man didn't know why they were fighting each other, but he reacted when Huang Mei fired the second shot. He didn't have a gun, and his first reaction wasn't to find a gun, but to charge to the dead man to press the remote. Huang Mei didn't want to let him do that, and she shot the man in the head instantaneously, but still couldn't stop the explosion. Seeing the scene on the screen explode in fire and turn black, Huang Mei sighed and said to herself, "I tried to help you however I could, but I couldn't do it completely. Sorry, but I need to run too." Huang Mei patched her waist up with some bandages and then cleaned the scene and wiped the cameras before leaving the room. She knew that not the sneak attack, but the moment when you wanted to run away was the hardest part. Yi Mo had a purpose when he entered the black hole. When his body was completely inside, he immediately turned invisible and flew out as quickly as he could. His flying sword turned into a chi shield to protect himself. He used his fastest speed and needed only 10 seconds to get out. Just when he was near the entrance to the tunnel, the explosion happened, and it roaringly pushed him out with all the rubble and earth. At the same time, Yi Mo ate the 2 pills. Even though he wanted to stop his body from flying out like the rubble, the force of the explosion was too powerful, and Yi Mo ended up heavily injured. The instant the explosion went off, Yi Mo used all his qi to protect himself. When the qi barrier as well as the flying sword's defenses were broken, his meridians were shattered. If he hadn't prepared the 2 pills beforehand, his organs would have been shattered too. Rumble, rumble. The fire and ice mixed together like fireworks blasting into the sky. Chapter 668. Chaos. Chapter 668. Chaos under that huge explosion. The glacier started to shatter and countless pieces broke off from the island and started to float away. Yi Mo fell onto one glacier with a large gust of earth and ice, and it also started to drift away from the island. The explosion immediately caught the attention of the fleets surveilling the area. The fleets started to close in on the island to find out what happened. A small boat left the mass of fleets, and it soon mixed with all the glaciers and became indiscernible. Huang Mei didn't expect she would be able to escape so easily. It was because the explosion caught everyone's attention and because the forest of glaciers became her best hiding spot. What? The island suddenly exploded and the huge glacier turned into countless smaller ones? When Han Zaixin heard the news, he was speechless. If the island exploded, how could Zhang Ju and Li Hu still be alive? Yi Mo, you don't need to go anymore. Han Zaixin murmured to himself and wanted to call Yi Mo, but the call wouldn't go through. Han Zaixin sighed and put the phone down. It was normal that Yi Mo's phone couldn't be reached. He didn't seem used to using such things. On an island near the Bailing Sea was the real base of Northern Sand. Yi Mo had guessed right, Northern Sand's HQ was there. At this moment, in the most core meeting room, a man was yelling, "Since the island has exploded, why is there no news being sent back? Who is responsible for this? We were using the Japanese ships and other people's power too. I suppose they fear that nearby countries might catch the signal. Chi Huan is responsible for this, and he's very careful. I don't think he would make a mistake. And that Huang Mei we sent always has a good overview of the broader picture. So even if Chi Huan made a mistake, she would point it out," a sharp voice replied. "Hold on, at this moment, any country is sending messages back and forth, so there's no way Chi Huan and company wouldn't send any news back. Unless they're in a special emergency, something must have happened to them." A hoarse voice sounded again. The man who had been first to speak said, "Try to contact them. I want to know immediately what result we got after spending so much resources and effort on this. Make them send back the video recording immediately." "Yes," a voice replied. "Brother Dongfang, do you think this explosion was due to Yi Mo? Although you said it's him, I'm still doubtful. I got news that he appeared in Antarctica just now, and a base there had to self-destruct due to him. He can't appear in the North Pole this quickly, right? But if it wasn't Yi Mo, then who would it be?" The man asked. After a long time, that hoarse voice sounded again. "I do think that person was Yi Mo. He's very mysterious. I'm sure he's one of the leaders of Luo Yu. As for why he can appear at the South Pole when he was at the North Pole a moment earlier, I think this is his mutant power. But if this explosion was due to him, we may never get the chance to research this power of his. That's a pity, the middle-aged man also sighed. At the White House, the president held a meeting as soon as he got news of the explosion. These were America's hardest times ever. On one hand, there was the rise of Luo Yu, and Luo Yu had even taken over Jason Giambi Island, and on the other hand was their gold reserves. Most importantly, their schemes for Luo Yu always ended in failure. The president was furious, but he knew anger wouldn't solve any problems. He needed to stay calm. Although this meeting was held partially to discuss the island, it was mainly to think of a right tactic for Luo Yu. No matter how strong Northern Sand was, it was just an organization. The U.S. could take them on any time. Their real enemy now was Luo Yu and not Northern Sand. The president knew clearly that even if Northern Sand really had that terrifying weapon called the Space Flower, the U.S. wouldn't be the only country facing it. The president looked at all the senators and his cabinet and stood up. Today, everyone sitting here must still be thinking that America is the strongest country in the world, both economically and militarily. But I regret to inform you that we are no longer the strongest country. Our gold reserves have gone missing. I won't name who took it, but everyone can guess the identity of the thief. Looking at everyone's reaction, the president continued with satisfaction. Luo Yu only had a year to establish themselves. Yet they accomplished what we did in half a century. They have used every means necessary and threatened the world with their nuclear power. Perhaps while we're still drinking champagne to celebrate our title of the strongest military power, they've already succeeded us in both technology and military. Now, they have taken Jason Giambi Island too. If this continues, our Navy will become irrelevant in the Indian Ocean. I fear that if this continues, our Navy can go hide in a ravine in the Pacific and only continue bluffing our own citizens. Perhaps then, not only Luo Yu, but also Russia and China might slowly reach out their heads above us. The president then sat down, and judging by the atmosphere of the room, he knew he had reached his goal. Everyone knew that the president wanted to attack Luo Yu, but they also knew that it wasn't going to be easy. Howard, like the president, also had a strong attitude, and he wasn't happy that they were getting beaten down by Luo Yu. Hence, he said, we actually do have a way to bring down Luo Yu. Everyone looked at him, so Howard gathered his thoughts and said, which one do you think is more important? The Russian Navy entering the southern and northern straits or Luo Yu's rise? I think Luo Yu's rise would threaten us more. They act like madmen, someone answered. Howard nodded. I believe so too. The reason why we used another excuse than them having nukes to take action against Luo Yu is because we know that if we used nukes as the excuse, Russia would vote against it. But now things are different. Luo Yu taking Jason Giambi Island clearly means that they're interested in the Malacca Strait. The Malacca Strait is the passage the Russians wish to use to return to their northern Vietnamese base. If we support Russia and allow them to go back there, don't you think Russia would stand on our side? Although it would be a huge loss for the U.S. to let Russia enter the northern Vietnamese base, that was nothing compared to the destruction of Luo Yu. If Luo Yu is gone, then Sino would return to the U.S. too. Seeing everyone nod, Howard continued. Now we just need to join up with Russia for the moment and attack Luo Yu together. Also, Luo Yu has detonated a nuke in the South Pole, which violates the Antarctic Treaty. That's enough of a reason to judge them. As long as Russia doesn't vote no, we can use the Union to judge Luo Yu again. What if China votes no? Someone asked. Howard smiled. Unless we admit that we are secretly allowing the Russian Navy back to their Vietnamese base, China won't do that. Chapter 669. Don't know if good or bad fortune. Chapter 669. Don't know if good or bad fortune. When Yemo woke up, it was already dark. He sat up immediately and checked his status. He was very badly injured. Luckily, he still had a Lotus Life pill in his mouth, so his wounds had started recovering immediately. Otherwise, he might have not been awake at that moment. Although his meridians had been truly shattered, with the Lotus Life pill, recovery would only be a matter of time. As for the external injuries, they didn't even count as injuries for Yi Mo. Only the Dan Tian and meridian injuries were actually concerning for him. Yi Mo took out other 2 Lotus Life pills and took them before checking his surroundings. Yi Mo realized that he was on a glacier and there was seawater all around him. Nothing else. The explosion must have shattered the glaciers, so he had floated away. Yi Mo felt he was lucky. If he had still been on the Ice Helmet Island, even if he hadn't been dead, he would have been caught. It seemed his quick reaction in the tunnel had been right. If he had turned around at the time, then the explosion probably would have went off a second or 2 later, and he might have died. Instead, he had chosen to go into the black hole and run away, turning invisible. This gave him at least 13 seconds, or so, the time he needed to survive. This incident made Yi Mo understand better that during danger it was very important to stay cool-headed. Although it had been extremely dangerous, he would treasure it. Sometimes, certain things can't be understood. Still, he had been able to make it out due to his pills and the flying sword. Yi Mo suddenly remembered his flying sword. Had it fallen in the ocean? Luckily, he found it really quickly. It was next to him, laying on the ground. But it had lost all of its spiritual properties. It couldn't fly anymore. Yi Mo picked it up and considered himself lucky. If it weren't for his flying sword, he wouldn't be sitting there without any part of his body missing. Although the flying sword had been heavily damaged, he still had a 5-element rock, so he could reforge it. Now that he was at stage 5 middle stage, reforging the sword would only make it stronger. No matter what, Yi Mo knew that the most important thing to do then was to heal himself. He didn't know how long he had been there for sure, but it shouldn't have been too long. The injuries made Yi Mo want to go into the small dimension even more. He wanted to get stronger outside, but no matter how hard he worked, it was useless without spirit chi and herbs. Yi Mo thought about this incident. It was clear that it had been a plan targeted at him. Who would do this? Who would lay out such a huge trap on an island? If from Luo Yu's outlets being smashed to the Bali tourists disappearing, they had all been targeted towards him, then his enemy was too dangerous. He got the same feeling that Dongfang she used to give him. The first person he thought of was Dongfang Tang. The first time he had come to Luo Yu to negotiate with Shauna, he was unable to control his emotions. Later on, he found out that he had done it in front of his partner. From that time, Yi Mo learned that Dongfang Tang was no simple man. If he really was the mastermind, the guy was too scary. At least, he knew that he was one of the higher-ups of Luo Yu. He knew more about him than Han Zixin. He was sure that the tunnel in Bali had been prepared by Northern Sand. Luo Yu's army had just happened to encounter it. He didn't know why Northern Sand would dig a tunnel there, but there was one thing he was certain. Northern Sand had many more of those. Northern Sand, Yi Mo said coldly, and he closed his eyes to heal up. The broken meridians started to weld together. Although it was a slow process, it was just a matter of time. As time went by, he noticed that it was much slower to recover than before. However, the strange thing was that despite it recovering slowly, it got much thicker after it healed. Yi Mo knew that the thicker the meridians, the better it was for cultivation. Usually, meridians would only change a lot at foundation establishment state. Even if you reached a higher level in chi gathering state, it would only become more durable, not thicker. He realized that this near-death experience had excavated some of his potential. Yi Mo took out another Lotus Life pill, and the only spirit stone he had. The expansion of his meridians meant that he had a stronger potential. With the same resources, he could reach a higher state. Luo Yu, the smell of war reached them once again. The reason was simple. Luo Yu had violated the Antarctic Treaty. The U.S. requested the Union to attack Luo Yu City for the second time. When voting, Russia contradicted all expectations and agreed. China didn't vote as usual, but this time the UK also didn't vote. Yet, still, it had been decided to attack Luoyu for the second time. The reason was that Luoyu was being a chaotic factor in the world and had detonated nukes in Antarctica. They threatened peaceful countries such as Indonesia with nukes and forced them to sign unfair treaties. They demanded Luoyu to immediately give back Na to the people. Looking at such request, Luoyu rejected it without thinking. Hence, war was inevitable again. The Union sent 630,000 troops this time, but 99% of this peacekeeping army was made up of U.S. soldiers. When it was the other countries' turn to send troops, they only sent a few symbolically. These bastards! Huang Inian cursed at the Luoyu's meeting. Everyone knew that despite it still being the Union attacking Luoyu, it was just one country, the U.S. As for why the U.S. was in a rush to attack Luoyu, the answer was crystal clear. Chapter 670. Yi Xing's Contempt. Chapter 670. Yi Xing's Contempt. He's still not back, Ning Qingshuo sighed. Luo Ying fell silent. She held Ning Qingshuo's hand and said, "He's fine, don't worry." Although she was comforting Ning Qingshuo, she was worried herself too. It had been 2 months since the explosion, and there still had been no news of Yi Mo. If Luoyu hadn't been facing an imminent war, they would have left to search for Yi Mo. However, they knew that if they left Luoyu now, it would only cause chaos. They still needed to make a lot of decisions. Yi Mo wasn't there, and they were his wives. If they couldn't stabilize the situation, it wouldn't end up well. Before the war, Yi Mo had left. And if they left too, what would that mean? If there was one person who didn't care about the war, it was Yi Xing. He said casually, "If we manage to crush them the first time, we can again." Su Yuehua was also very confident in Luoyu's defenses. She had carried war tests, and Luoyu had created new secret weapons since the last war. She was just worried about Yi Mo. "I've ordered the troops in Jason Mayambai Island to retreat," Huang White Inian said grumpily. He had just gotten a very important military advantage in location, but now he had to give it away. Su Yuehua nodded. "It's just that we had too little time this time, and only 30,000 more immigrants arrived. If we had another year, perhaps we could have gotten a few 100,000 more." Yi Xing smiled. "Don't worry, we have a secret weapon. If we beat them until they can't hold it this time, we will have at least 5 to 10 years of peace." "Brother Yi Xing, how are you sure?" Yi Zifeng asked strangely. Yi Xing smiled bitterly and patted his head. "I don't know why I'm certain. I seem to have a lot of war knowledge in my brain. This small war is like child's game." No one would doubt Yi Xing's capabilities there. Only Su Yuehua knew what secret weapon Yi Xing was talking about. Because Luoyu couldn't produce that many warheads themselves, they could only rely on imported weapons. But that had also been restricted. Yi Xing looked down on imported weapons. However, one couldn't just build a production line with money. After many months of hard work, he had invented a new type of missile system called air orbit mini-missile. These were very small missiles, but they had a great explosive power. It was far from what a normal TNT could compare with. When Russia limited Luoyu's missile import, Yi Xing had started making these already. Yi Xing knew that although Luoyu's defenses were amazing, if war really started and they were surrounded, then no matter how strong Luoyu's defenses were, they would be defeated if they couldn't attack. So Yi Xing created this. Air orbit mini-missiles were accurate, powerful, and long-ranged. The main advantage was that these missiles couldn't be detected by radar. Also, these missiles could be mass-produced. But Yi Xing and even Su Yuehua believed that after this war, if the U.S. wanted to provoke Luoyu again, they would need to seriously reconsider war. The reason for the U.S. to dare attack Luoyu was because they knew they lacked missiles. Without offense power, defense meant nothing. The U.S. clearly knew how many missiles Luoyu imported, so they were willing to take an early loss for a huge victory at the end. Yi Xing said, "This war is really easy to handle for Luo Yu, but what won't be easy will be the aftermath." "Brother Yi, what do you mean?" Su Ping asked. Yi Xing immediately said, "I'm sure that the Union's army will be crippled by our air-orbit mini-missiles. Yet, crippled doesn't mean defeated. Hence, we need to go out and attack right after we win the initial combat. If the Union's army is defeated, they won't come back. We don't need to chase them. Moreover, we only have 30,000 soldiers. How could we even chase them?" Yu Miaodong asked. Yi Xing smiled. "If we don't go after them and finish up, they will come back for sure. The problem is with the air-orbit mini-missiles. The first time you use it to attack an enemy, it's very powerful, but it has a weakness. The anti-radar and anti-missile lock system is very simple. Once they look into the empty shell of the missiles, they can change theirs very easily. So once they come back and attack for the second time, Luo Yu would be at loss. Furthermore, modern warfare isn't about numbers. But even if we kick them out of here, they would still realize the situation. It's just a matter of time," Yi Zifeng said. "That's different," Yi Xing immediately said. "If we defeat them and force them to sign a treaty, even if they were to come back, it would be a long while until then. We mostly need time. After this time passes, the mini-missiles will be useless to us because by then we will have better weapons. So this time we need to hurt them hard, just like last time. Also, there's a thing I need to tell everyone. Marshal Brother Yemo is much more capable than I am, so you don't have to worry about his safety. Even if he didn't come back for a few years, I'm sure he'd be fine." Yi Xing knew it was important to keep everyone's morale up, but he wasn't lying either. Yemo was someone who could fly. The entire world's eyes were once again on Luo Yu. This time the U.S. had started war against Luo Yu in the name of peace and justice. So, the largest betting companies in the world had opened a bet again for the war. The marshal in charge of this army was General Wales. He had been to many wars and his style was similar to Rommel's, since he could win against many with fewer soldiers. Despite Rommel being a German military officer, he was Wales' role model. At the end of the third month since Yemo had left Luo Yu, they had gathered 630,000 Union Army soldiers. 330,000 for inland, 100,000 for the Navy, 80,000 for Air Forces, and 120,000 people for inland and Navy together. The main weapons were 1,500 tanks, 3,000 armored vehicles, 2,000 fighter jets, 1,900 helicopters, 160 ships, and all sorts of interference machines. With this power, Wales declared war to Luo Yu. Chapter 671. Tactic? Chapter 671. Tactic, perhaps due to the rightful reason the Union had this time. There were many more countries involved in the war. Furthermore, the army was more singular than last time. It was made up of mostly U.S. soldiers. This was because everyone knew that the U.S. would get all the spoils of the war in the end. Likewise, the U.S. didn't really expect these countries to give real military support. It was impossible that the U.S. would divide the earned land. They would at most share some of the technological items they got with the condition that these countries would support publicly the U.S. Because it was only the U.S. Army attacking, they could only go in through the Malacca Strait and Itas Strait into the Indian Ocean. This was because Luo Yu had given up on Jason Mayambai Island to reduce losses. If Luo Yu hadn't done that, the U.S. fleet would have had to enter from the Malacca Strait. The land army could only invade from Ethiopia and Kenya. There was no other way. The first they had tried to invade, the commander initiated an all-in attack as soon as he arrived. This resulted in a rapid defeat. This time, Wales surrounded Luo Yu, but he wasn't in a rush to attack Luo Yu. The head commander was Yi Xing. He looked at the densely packed fleets with a contemptuous look. Yi Xing said coldly, "They want to fight the war on land, but they came too late. If it had been half a year ago, when we only had a few thousand people, as long as they kept part of Luo Yu's troops busy with the Navy, it would have been really hard for us to guard Shiten Valley. But now that's not plausible. Luoyu is not a good place for land battle. Why isn't this place suitable for land battle? Moreover, they have so many ships. Su Ping asked. Yixing laughed. Because Luoyu now has Yixing, he knew that the intel they had received was very different to the actual numbers, but he didn't care. Everyone knew they were being played by Yixing, but they had to recognize his capabilities. Without him, it would have been really hard to protect the country. Also, the defense system Yixing had made was extremely powerful. It was indeed hard to land on Luoyu with a few 100,000 people. Luoyu's navy didn't even need to go out to fight. They just had to wait there. It looked like the enemy was at their doorsteps. It was very dangerous. Yet for Luoyu, the closer to home, the safer they were. Commander Yi, didn't we attack when they were at a few 100 miles range last time? Why don't we attack now? Our missile system can send them to heaven, Guo Qi asked in confusion. I want to know how they are going to fight. I still have an ultimate weapon. If they aren't worthy of it, I can't be bothered taking it out. Moreover, although we can fight at a long distance, the accuracy would be lower, Yixing smiled. The Union Army didn't make them wait long. On the huge screen in the command center, masses of jets appeared and flew towards Luoyu like locusts. How do they have so many planes? There's like 1,000 of them. How come our missile defense system hasn't reacted after these planes appeared? Su Ping asked in shock. Yixing said calmly, that's because they're unmanned Pilates. Our defense system can recognize them, and it's really simple to stop them too. We only have to activate our defense system completely. Su Ping asked worriedly, why did they send this many autopiloted planes? Yixing said, although these autopiloted planes can also drop bombs, they are simple bombs and can't pose an effective threat to us. Their main purpose is to make us waste our missiles. They know that we have limited missiles, so they came prepared. Although Su Yuehua and Su Ping knew that Yixing had made a new type of missiles, it hadn't been tested in real life yet, so no one knew its effects. If it didn't have the intended effect, Luoyu's missiles would be depleted. Then let these autopiloted planes come. Ignore them. Su Ping said with a frown. Su Yuehua shook her head. I think we should still use these mini-missiles to blow them apart. We have as much we want. We'll save the large missiles for their naval power and land AR-. Yixing rebuked. I don't agree with this method. One thing is clear. Most of the ships surrounding Luoyu must be autopiloted too. No matter how rich they are, they can't take out these many ships. So we'll do as they please. We'll use the imported missiles to attack those autopiloted planes and ships. But Su Yuehua and Su Ping looked at each other. They seemed worried. Yixing smiled. It seems you don't trust me. Trust me. My mini-missiles are much better than those imported large missiles. Commander Guo, those planes are about to fly over Luoyu. Open the defense missile system and destroy them all. If those ships are in range, then fire at them too. The planes that flew above Luoyu seemed to be fearless. They fell into the Indian Ocean one by one. But they didn't stop flying to Luoyu. The sky was painted with explosions and black smoke. It was as though nighttime had come early. The Union Army seemed to be enraged by this and kept firing missiles from their ships. However, they were all intercepted by Luoyu's missiles and thrown into the ocean. Aboard the U.S. largest mothership, Wales looked at the ship sink from the command center, but his face was calm. Since Luoyu was wasting their missiles, he had a contemptuous look on his face. They have no real reserves. They want to dominate the entire Indian Ocean with just a strong defense and an interference system. Insolent people. I really don't understand how we lost last time. Wales shook his head. In Wales' eyes, a country that started up as a company, dared to stand at the top of the world and challenge the U.S. would be like asking to die. They didn't even have proper military strategist. He had used a tactic and they couldn't even see through it. Instead, they were doing just what he wanted. Once they used up their missiles, it would be time for them to launch the final attack. Soon, 1,000 planes and a similar number of ships had sunk. Meanwhile, Luo Yu had lost a TV tower. When Wales noticed this, his expression looked a bit unhappy. Although the goal was to get Luo Yu to waste their missiles, they had used quite a lot. Luo Yu's defense missile system was too strong. It had an almost 98% success rate. Chapter 672. Saved. Chapter 672. Saved. Start the second part of the plan. Have the fleet press forward. Send 5 groups of fighter jets to bomb away at Luo Yu, and have the ground forces start the feint, Wales commanded. Wales knew that after that attack, Luo Yu wouldn't have much missiles left. No one would guess that he was just discarding those fighter jets for Luo Yu to take them down. Even if people did guess, he would obviously never admit to it. His approach was to beat Luo Yu in a financial battle of attrition. 100 dead pilots meant nothing to him. He knew that without sacrifices, it would be hard to take over Luo Yu even after it ran out of missiles. However, the hefty price of one F-22, an elite pilot, and 5 groups of fighter jets amounting to a total of about 100 jets. Only Wales would dare suffer such hefty losses. What Wales cared about at the moment was how Luo Yu would be defending itself this time. More missiles, or perhaps their own jets. He didn't have to wait long to get the answer he wanted. And it would indeed seem that Luo Yu had a limited amount of missiles, as they simply sent out the same number of jets. In terms of equipment and pilot quality, though Luo Yu was inferior to the Union Army. Luo Yu's jets came from Russia. They had the S-35, while the Union Army used F-22s. The S-35 was far inferior to the F-22. The F-22 could turn around 180 degrees and had an infrared scanner, and not just simple heat-seeking functions. However, the S-35 being far inferior was under normal circumstances. In the air above Luo Yu, the powerful interference machine made the F-22's radars useless. The Union's anti-interference machines were useless too. The S-35s had also been modified by Luo Yu. In the aerial battle above Luo Yu, they didn't even need the interference machine. Every missile they fired hit the Union Army's jets. The ones that tried to escape were all taken down by the missile system. Soon, those 5 groups of jets were completely annihilated, while Luo Yu lost only 4 jets. Wales' face was still calm. He had reached his goal. He knew that Luo Yu's missiles had to be about to be used up. If not for Luo Yu's defensive system, he wouldn't have even thought about sending those groups of fighter jets. At the same time, the Union Army at Shiten Valley had also started to attack. However, Shiten Valley was easy to defend and hard to attack. The Union Army couldn't provide aerial support either. So despite Luo Yu's troops being at a disadvantage, the Union Army found it hard to breach their defenses. General Wales, I think we can launch the full-scale attack now. As Advisor Fella saw how Luo Yu's jets had been fighting the Union's jets, he knew that their plan had succeeded. Wait a bit longer, Wales waved his hand. As long as they could ensure that Luo Yu had no missiles left, Luo Yu would be like pigs waiting to be slaughtered. They didn't need to rush it. Wales believed that the reason for Luo Yu's cockiness had to be their strong defensive system and unimaginable interference machine. But the requirement for that was that they had to have enough missiles to stop Wales' tactics. Hence, he was throwing out money to bring down Luo Yu. After all, even the autopiloted planes and ships were quite costly, even if they used the lowest grade engines. Moreover, Wales thought that even if Luo Yu figured out their plan, there was nothing they would be able to do about it. Yi Mo suddenly woke up with a cold feeling. He had been so indulged in expanding his meridians that he forgot what time it was and where he was at. Yi Mo just realized that the glacier he was on had melted to about 10 meters in diameter and was going to disappear soon. He would then no longer have a place to recover. Right when he was about to be finished, he would be losing the place he was staying on. This made him very unhappy. Nevertheless, Yi Emo wasn't too dejected. He knew that he'd encountered a stroke of fortune that no spirit stones or herbs could compare with. In a few more days, his meridians would be fully recovered. If he went to the cultivation realm now with his newly repaired meridians, he would be a genius fought over by all sections. He now had amazingly broad and tough meridians before even reaching the foundation establishment state. As long as he had enough resources, his path of cultivation would be very smooth. In his joyful mood, Yi Emo came to the top of the glacier and howled. He was even more excited than when he flew on his flying sword. Yi Emo used a cleaning spell and changed into a set of clean clothes. He was planning on finding another glacier to recover on. Once he did, he would be able to reforge his flying sword, after which he would go back to Luoying and Ningqingxue and hold their wedding. 2 days later, as the glacier below him was about to disappear, Yi Emo didn't find a glacier, but he encountered a ship instead. Seeing the ship, Yi Emo immediately wanted to go over by running on water, but then he thought about it and eventually didn't. If he really did that, people would surely want to record such a magical thing. He couldn't let anyone see him right now, however. If the person who had targeted him found out that he had survived, that person wouldn't dare show himself, so it would make it inconvenient for Yi Emo to get revenge. Yi Emo quickly got his big beard masquerade out. After he completely changed his appearance and was about to turn invisible to go onto the ship seemed to have spotted him and slowed down. After a while, a small jet ski came over. There were 2 people on it, one called Ross and another called David. After asking them where he was, Yi Emo found out that they were in the Pacific. He had actually drifted from the North Pole to the Pacific. Luckily, this ship was going from Canada to Hong Kong and the 2 new Chinese. He knew that his appearance was very suspicious, so before the 2 men could ask anything, he gave them $50,000 each and told them that he was an adventurer. He said that he had wanted to circle the Pacific, but crashed his ship onto coral and survived thanks to finding a nearby glacier to climb on. He gave them money so that they would help him find a place to stay in on the ship and also for them to help speak for him. When Yi Emo was taken aboard the ship, a few policemen came and questioned Yi Emo, but he didn't even need to answer as the 2 men who saved him got it done for him. He just acted like he didn't know any English at all. "Mr. Emo, we will find a place for you to stay. Don't worry. David will take you to dinner first. There's still a long time before we reach Hong Kong, but we hope you have a pleasant journey." The 2 men were very hospitable to Yi Emo. Because Ross was getting a room for Yi Emo, Yi Emo gave him another $50,000 and asked him to get him a quiet and beautiful place. If the money wasn't enough, he could come ask him for more. "It's enough, it's enough." Ross took the money and sighed. He had really saved a wealthy person this time. Yi Emo didn't take out more money, because he didn't want the 2 to suspect why he had so much cash on him either. When David took Yi Emo to the dining hall, he told Yi Emo to relaxedly eat while they were getting him a room. Yi Emo was in no rush. After eating wheat for months, he was happy to be getting something nice to eat before going back to cultivate. He ordered a steak and some vegetables and found a corner to sit in. He thought to himself, "Once I recover and remake my flying sword, the first thing I investigate should be the guy who ambushed me. No matter who it was, he must die." Chapter 673. Surprise. Chapter 673. Surprise. The conversation between 2 Chinese ladies on the next table caught Yi Emo's attention. They were talking about Luoyu going to war, but according to what Yi Emo knew, the war had ended before he had came out. Why were they still talking about it? This confused Yi Emo a lot. However, they stopped the topic soon and talked about other things. Yi Emo got up and walked up to the 2 ladies in a gentleman manner. "Hello, I'm Emoing. Would you 2 mind if I sat with you?" The 2 girls were dazed. They didn't think they were ugly, but they didn't consider themselves pretty either. At most, One could say their faces were well structured. Perhaps the short-haired girl was the sexiest. They didn't expect someone to come and chat with them. Although that big bearded man didn't look that appealing, he seemed quite fit. Moreover, he probably was no simple man if he was able to stay on the cruise and eat at the high-class restaurant. Of course not. Take a seat. The long-haired woman had a good-willed smile. Yi Emo sat down and asked, "What are your names?" It was basic manners, he couldn't skip it. "I'm Shi Huanshan, and she's my colleague Lin Man." The long-haired woman pointed at the younger girl next to her and introduced themselves. Even though the younger woman was in her 30s, Lin Man was more curvaceous. Yi Emo quickly said, "Nice to meet you." Yi Emo wanted to ask about Luo Yu's war situation right away, but Shi Huanshan thought Yi Emo was trying to get them into bed. The 5-star cruiser was too boring. Although the big bearded man looked average in course, he was indeed fit. She wouldn't mind having some fun with him in her room. So she quickly asked Yi Emo, "Mr. Emo, you're Chinese, right? Are you doing business from Canada to Hong Kong, or are you going on holiday?" Then the long-haired woman got a little closer to Yi Emo. She suddenly felt that the big bearded man wasn't that coarse. At least he smelled nice and didn't make her feel rejected. Some Western travelers were also quite well built, yet their smell was unbearable. Lin Man knew what Shi Huanshan wanted immediately. Shi Huanshan's marriage hadn't gone well. After she got divorced, she asked her to go on holiday with her. At her age, it was unbearable to not have a man. Moreover, she had already found a man on the cruise, but Shi Huanshan hadn't. Now that a man had come, she supported it. Yi Emo moved aside awkwardly and immediately said, "No, I like adventures. I'm an adventurer. By the way, I heard you talk about the Luo Yu War. What's going on? Didn't the war between Luo Yu and Indonesia already end? I'm very interested in this." Hearing this, Shi Huanshan didn't continue moving and looked at Yi Emo in shock. That was a few months ago. Now it's because Luo Yu violated the Antarctica Treaty, so the Union is bringing Luo Yu to justice. This is the second invasion on Luo Yu. As if you didn't know this already. Yi Emo was furious. It must have been the U.S. again. Although Yi Emo wasn't worried about Luo Yu since Yixing was there, he was still angry at the U.S. constant provocation. "Mr. Emo, your room is ready. This is the room card. It's a house with a balcony on to the side of the ship. The balcony faces the sun. Is this to your liking?" Ross and David came to give him the room card personally. "I'm very happy, thank you too." Yi Emo took the card. He just wanted a quiet place. It didn't have to be a house. Then he gave them $20,000 each. Ross and David were even more shocked. Money was like paper to this man. How did he have so much cash on him? Shi Huanshan and Lin Man saw this, and immediately he was a guy with money to burn. Even Lin Man was beginning to get interested in this man. Although he had a big beard, he was extremely rich. It was even fine if the two women shared him. But Yi Emo already knew what was going on and didn't want to stay there. Just when he got up, a familiar figure walked into the restaurant. "Sister Yen?" Yi Emo was shook. How come was she here? "Hey, wait, dash!" Yi Emo was about to call her sister Yen, but he immediately remembered that she was still his auntie. It wouldn't be appropriate to call her sister. The woman heard Yi Emo's call and turned around. She looked around and saw it was a big-bearded man and two girls. She frowned and left. Yi Emo saw a cold-faced woman, but she didn't look like Sister Yen. However, he immediately realized that she probably had disguised herself. He hadn't expected to meet her here. Thinking about this, Yi Emo wanted to chase up. "Wait." Yi Emo tried to leave, but Lin Man grabbed him. Yi Emo was desperate and pushed her hand away. His actions were a little vulgar. Lin Man was dazed and said at once, "How can you be so rude?" "Sorry, I just saw someone I knew." Yi Emo knew he was wrong and apologized. He tried again to leave, but Lin Man sneered and didn't let him. "You saw someone you knew. You just wanted to flirt with that woman. You were just talking to Huanshan. and now you're going to talk to another woman. Aren't you a bit too shameless? Yi Emo opened his mouth, surprised. He thought, since when was I flirting with Huanshan? I was just asking a question. What's wrong, Ms. Lin Man? A man in his 30-foot came up with a bag in his hand, who would carry a bag around with him all the time on the ship. Out of curiosity, Yi Emo scanned his spirit sense. It was a cloth with 3 milky white stones wrapped in it. Yi Emo was in shock. These were spirit stones. Yi Emo's heart started to skip rapidly. He even cast Sister Yen aside and started thinking about how to get these stones. It was quite easy for Yi Emo to get them, but he also wanted to know where they came from. He could always steal them, but he would buy it if it was an acceptable price. Lin Man pointed at Yi Emo and said, Brother Kuei, this guy was talking to Huanshan and, you know what I mean? But he saw this other girl and immediately cast Sister Huanshan aside. He's too shameless. I just said something and he was very vulgar to me. Lin Man still decided to not let the big bearded man go because he was very rich. Chapter 674. Strange Sister Yen. Chapter 674. Strange Sister Yen. Many people had come watching the scene. When did we ever dash? Yi Emo asked speechlessly. Before he said anything else, Lin Man said with red eyes, You dare ask when? You already don't want to take responsibility of what you did last night. After her statement, people around them started discussing amongst themselves. Yi Emo was speechless. He had still been on the glacier the previous night. What had he done? Hello, I'm Meng Kuei, a business manager of the U.S. Sika Communications Company. Meng Kuei reached out his hand and smiled. He didn't know who Yi Emo was. Hence, although Lin Man was his partner on the cruise, if Yi Emo was powerful, he wasn't going to offend Yi Emo for a woman. So he needed to ask about Yi Emo's origin to see if he could take on him. Sika Communications? Yi Emo felt this name was very familiar. It took him just a moment to remember. The company belonged to the Song family. I'm Emoing. I like traveling the world and collecting rare stones. If it's a stone I like, I will buy it no matter the price, Yi Emo said, testing Meng Kuei's reaction. Hearing this, Meng Kuei seemed happy. Yi Emo immediately knew that Meng Kuei didn't know the price of spirit stones and didn't even know what he had. I see, Mr. Emo likes rare stones. I like them too, Meng Kuei said at once. Yi Emo nodded. Yes, I have spent almost all my fortune buying rare stones. Yet there's rarely a few I like. Meng Kuei was getting more desperate. He knew his stones were valuable, but he wasn't sure how valuable. He was a careful person and didn't dare let other people look into it for him. His stones had an eerie origin, and if other people knew about it, he might lose his life. Brother Emo, I'm also interested in rare stones. Would you be interested in discussing about UT with me? Meng Kuei asked. Of course, Yi Emo was interested. Yi Emo also smiled. Brother Meng, we seem to share the same liking. I love discussing rare stones with people like you. My room is on the side of the ship, please. Seeing Yi Emo and Meng Kuei leave together, Lin Man's expression was very bad. The people around them also left. At this moment, the cold-faced woman came out of somewhere and sneered. She was looking at where Yi Emo had been a few seconds ago. There are no good men in this world. I was willing to take initiative, but apparently they prefer each other more than women. Lin Man was unsatisfied. Shi Huanshan looked at Yi Emo's back disappointedly and said after a while, That Meng Kuei is no good man, but the big bearded man was actually a good person. Sure, very good. You were practically throwing yourself to him and he was playing dumb. Good my ass. Lin Man had even been willing to go with the big bearded man and Huanshan, but he actually preferred men. Lin Man said, I won't let Meng Kuei lay on my bed again no matter how rich he is. I'm not a woman who needs a man to survive. To be honest, I get the feeling that the bearded man wasn't trying to flirt with us. Shi Huanshan felt that he had approached them so he could ask about the luo you wore. Even Meng Kuei had to admire Yimo's room. He could tell that this man was wealthy just by looking at his room. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to afford it. Yi Mo patiently talked to Meng Kuei for about 10 minutes. Just when he was about to bring up the spirit stones himself, Meng Kuei took them out of his bag. Finally, Yi Mo thought, "Brother Mo, have you seen this sort of stone before?" Meng Kuei showed them to Yi Mo. Half an hour later, Meng Kuei was carrying a big bag while walking away from Yi Mo's room. He was thinking about how wealthy that man was. The stones he had picked up had been actually bought for $800,000. Mo didn't even bargain. What he didn't understand was why Mr. Mo had that much cash in his room. Also, there was another thing he didn't understand. Why did he thoughtlessly tell that bearded man how he had gotten the stones? Although he regretted it, it was too late. Yi Mo played with the stones for a long while before putting them away. He hadn't expected to be able to get 3 spirit stones for $800,000. The only pity was that Meng Kuei had found them randomly. A month ago, Meng Kuei was traveling in Canada. One night at a tourist spot, he saw 2 people fighting. He hid and didn't dare move. When he came out, they were both dead. He found that one of them had a wooden box which contained the stones. Meng Kuei knew they weren't ordinary stones. After he got them, he wanted to go to Hong Kong at once and sell them. He had managed to sell them before he even reached Hong Kong. He knew that the stones were worth more than $800K, but he was very happy that he could sell them for this price. It made him uneasy to carry them with him constantly. Yi Mo shook his head. He then started thinking about Sister Yen. He quickly scanned out his spirit sense as soon as he walked out of the room. Although his meridians hadn't completely recovered, his spirit sense could reach 1,500 meters now. It was a lot more compared to the 1,200 meters he could reach before. Yi Mo soon found Sister Yen in a low-quality room. Yi Mo realized something was off. He had given her a lot of money. How could she be staying in a low-quality room? Yi Mo went to her door and knocked. Yin Qinyan heard this, and she was instantly dazed. She didn't know anyone on the ship who could knocking on her door, but her powers had finally recovered, so she wasn't afraid. When she saw it was the big bearded man, her expression changed drastically. "Who are you?" "I don't know you. Go away." She was about to close the door. Yi Mo knew that Sister Yen wouldn't recognize him, and there were people walking down the corridor. Hence, he pushed her aside, entered the room, and closed the door. Seeing this, Qinyan was about to attack Yi Mo, but he quickly said, "Sister Yen, it's me. I'm Yi Mo." Although she was his auntie, it was too awkward to call her that, so Yi Mo stuck to Sister Yen. "Do you know me?" Qinyan's expression changed, and she stopped the attack. "Are you Yi Mo?" Yi Mo took off the mask and smiled. "I really am Yi Mo, huh?" She saw that the man was actually Yi Mo, but her joy only lasted a moment before she pushed Yi Mo. "Get out! Piss off!" She had completely changed her attitude, and Yi Mo thought, "What is this?" He soon noticed something wrong. Sister Yan's neck had turned pink. "Sister Yen," he called her. When he saw her cry, he didn't know what to do. HR didn't know if he should leave or not. He thought she would be very happy to see him. After a long time, she calmed down and suddenly said, "Did you see the diary I gave you?" "Yes, I saw it." Yi Mo wanted to say he had only read the cover, but Sister Yan's neck turned even redder, and then she started crying. Chapter 675. Let It Go. Chapter 675. Let It Go. Qinyan was very embarrassed. She didn't plan on seeing Yi Mo again after giving him her diary, because it was too embarrassing. It was because the last part of her diary was written the day she saw Yi Mo. The reason why she gave Yi Mo that letter was because she wanted to cut all strings which tied her to anyone after she was done with her own things. She wouldn't go to Luoyu nor see Yi Mo. Even if she was to visit them, she wouldn't do it in front of Yi Mo. She would go secretly so that it wouldn't be that awkward. But the world was small, and a year after separating with Emo, she ended up on the same boat as Emo. Emo looked helplessly at Sister Yen and didn't know what to do. She was his auntie, so she should be happy to see him, and Emo knew that she genuinely meant well for him. So why was she acting like that? Qingyang sniffed for a long time and saw that Emo was still motionless. She suddenly got up and yelled at Emo, "Look at what you're doing. You're from a famed family, yet you get along with random women on the cruise and go to bed with them. On top of that, you get along with guys as well. I'm too disappointed in you." Emo never read the last part of the diary, nor had he seen the letter hidden there. So he didn't know what Sister Yen was thinking. He immediately knew that she had misunderstood him, though. "Sister Yen, it's not what you think. Let me explain." Before Emo could finish, Qingyang started pushing Emo out. "Go out, I don't want to see you." Emo knew that if he wanted to stay, Qingyang wouldn't be able to push him out, but she was his auntie, so he could only listen to her. "Sister Yen, I'm in the seaside room number C326, Emo said and was pushed out. Seeing people coming over from a distance, Emo sighed and quickly went back to his room. He didn't want to be recognized. Qingyang touched her face and felt more and more embarrassed. "If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have written the last part of the letter. I'm an auntie." Qingyang felt her face burning. Emo went back to his room and thought about the diary and Sister Yan's strange behavior. He had never read it because he could at any time, so there was no hurry. It was just a record of Sister Yan's life. What was more important to Emo was not reading the diary, but repairing his meridians. He had just gotten 3 spirit stones, so even if Sister Yen had misunderstood him, he didn't mind. He was still rather happy. Emo closed the door and hung up the Do Not Disturb sign as he started to repair his meridians. A day passed by quickly, and Qingyang started getting worried. The awkwardness would just be temporary, but since Emo knew already, he might as well face it. Yet a day had passed, and Emo still didn't come look for her. Was he really angry? Since Qingyang already felt awkward about that, it was impossible for her to go look for Emo. She was also still his auntie. The second day passed, yet there was still no news of Emo. Qingyang even went to the restaurant many times but didn't see Emo. She even wanted to ask the woman next to Lin Man, but thinking about how that ugly woman had slept with Emo, she felt too uncomfortable to do that. On the third day, she finally couldn't take it and went over to Emo's room. The Do Not Disturb sign made her very angry. Meanwhile, Emo was very happy. He had just completely recovered his meridians and gone from stage 5 middle stage to stage 5 tertiary stage. Although he had used up that spirit stone from the auction, he was still very happy because with his current progress, he would definitely be able to reach stage 6 with the help of his 3 newly acquired spirit stones. But spirit stones were rare, so he didn't want to use them yet. He would try to have his breakthrough paying the smallest price possible. After taking a shower, Emo was about to go visit Sister Yen and perhaps eat with her before starting to repair his flying sword, when suddenly someone knocked on his door. Emo's spirit sense immediately picked up on an angry and worried Sister Yen. She had taken off her masquerade and looked just like the young girl on the picture in her diary. If he didn't know that she was more than 10 years older than him, he would have thought this pretty girl was a university student. At this moment, Emo remembered the image of Sister Yen when she fell over in the bathroom. Her perfect curves had made him lose his mind a bit. Knock, knock. Emo didn't dare keep thinking about it and quickly opened the door. The moment Qingyang saw Emo, her worried face disappeared and turned into a cool one. But she had this sulking look to her that made her face not seem all that cold. Bang! Qingyang slammed the door shut and said to Emo in anger, "Why haven't you gone out for a few days? Why don't you just bore yourself to death then?" Emo opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Qingyang came at him again. "What's wrong with you? How can you even want a woman like that? Also, I criticize you, yet you don't come to see me for a few days. What's up with that? Yi Emo looked at Sister Yen in a daze, and thought that she seemed quite different compared to his impression of her. Seeing that Yi Emo didn't talk, Ing Qingyang blushed, walked up to Yi Emo, and suddenly hugged him. A faint aroma spread to Yi Emo's nose, and he reflexively inhaled it a bit. At the same time, the softness in front of her chest pressed hard against Yi Emo's chest, making him feel hot. Hot energy arose in Yi Emo's stomach. Yi Emo was no noob anymore, having had multiple experiences. He immediately knew what was going on and felt that it wasn't right. Sister Yen was his auntie. He shouldn't have such a reaction. Auntie Dash! Yi Emo subconsciously wanted to push her away. Ing Qingyang hugged Yi Emo even tighter and said, "You've already read my diary and letter. Are you still going to call me auntie?" Suddenly, her voice grew louder. "Also, don't go around finding those sort of women again, or just you wait and see how I'll punish you. What about Ning Qingxue? Isn't she your wife?" Then Ing Qingyang suddenly let go off Emo and pinched his ear. "Is your wife uglier than those two, huh? I'm warning you, I will be by your side from now on, so don't even think about finding those women." Yi Mo's face blushed, and he felt this auntie was too bold. "What are you getting embarrassed about? Even if I like you, so what? I'm not your real auntie anyway." Ing Qingyang looked at Yi Mo's embarrassed state and suddenly felt happy. It was better to let go of her inhibitions, and there was no need to stay awkward. "What? Sister Yen, you're not my real auntie." Yi Emo looked at her in shock. "Indeed, apparently I was found by my master. I originally thought that my sister wasn't master's real daughter, but it turned out that I wasn't." Ing Qingyang suddenly stopped there and looked at Yi Emo worriedly. "You didn't know? Did you not read the diary?" Yi Emo smiled bitterly and said, "I wasn't able to finish it. I never found the time to finish reading." Ing Qingyang's face suddenly burst red as she pushed Yi Emo away and said in a loud voice, "Give me the diary now, quick!" Chapter 676, Final Attack. Chapter 676, Final Attack. Just when Yi Emo was about to give her the diary, he felt it wasn't right. Why would she want back something she gave him? Was there some secret in it? If he gave it to her, it would be hard for him to get it back. Thinking about this, he played dumb and said, "Sister Yen, I don't have that diary with me." "You left it at your house? Could anyone find it? What about Ning Qingxue?" Sister Yen asked. "You're not lying to me, are you?" Sister Yen asked suspiciously. She felt Yi Mo's expression was strange. Yi Emo realized that he hadn't lied to her. He didn't have the diary on him. It was in his ring. "I'm going to stay with you from today onwards. I'm scared you lied to me. Perhaps you will take out the diary as soon as I leave," Sister Yen suddenly said. Yi Emo replied speechlessly, "Sister Yen, you know that if I wanted to read it, I would have had 3 days to do so? Also, why can't I read it? Who knows what you're thinking? Maybe you were doing something for the past 3 days. Just in case, I will keep an eye on you. As long as I'm gone, you can read it as much as you want." Sister Yen didn't want to feel embarrassed again. Yi Emo looked helplessly at Sister Yen. He wouldn't have thought she was that smart. He really was planning on reading the diary first, but now he had no option. "Why do I get the feeling that you're a little scared?" Sister Yen stared at Yi Emo and suddenly asked. It was already the 4th day since the battle in Luoyu had started. Luoyu had shot thousands of missiles and sunk countless planes and ships of the Union Army. A special aspect of the war was that on the outskirts of the Indian Ocean, large amounts of neutral countries and their media ships were watching the war. They were recording everything that was happening on the battlefield. As large amounts of reports were sent back, many military specialists wrote articles explaining the Union Army's tactic. It was very shameless, but it was very effective against Luoyu. One could foresee that if Luoyu used up all their missiles, the Union Army could then give the final blow attack. Luo Yu seemed to be in a more and more dangerous position. The Union appeared to have suffered heavy losses, but large amounts of recordings and evidence proved that the sunken ships and planes were all fakes. Otherwise, how could they just send thousands of ships and planes for Luo Yu to sink? More and more people looked unfavorably at Luo Yu, except for one person. He was Shi Kulong, the one who wrote about the New Age warfare after the first battle in Luo Yu. He felt that the series of actions Luo Yu had been taking all had deep thinking behind. He doubted that Luo Yu couldn't see what the Union Army was doing. The reason they kept firing missiles wasn't as a last resource, but because they had other means. However, after the article was published, it still received large amounts of criticism. People believed that Commander Wales was using overt schemes. Luo Yu knew about their plan. However, there was nothing they could do about it because they still had to take them down. At the Luo Yu command center, Yi Xing and the rest sat in a round table. They weren't talking about the war. They were discussing the inner chaos. Fang Wei, who was responsible for Luo Yu's security, reported that the Jews on the outskirts of Luo Yu were starting riots. They demanded Luo Yu to stop the war and accept all of the Union Army's orders. "I'm sure that they're all spies. The best way is to kill them all." Su Ping was very angry. Luo Yu was at war, and these people were causing trouble in the back. Su Yuehua shook her head. "I think this is an opportunity." Opportunity? Other than Yi Xing, no one knew what Su Yuehua meant. Su Yuehua glanced at Yi Xing and smiled. "There aren't a lot of people rioting. Su brother is right. These spies did indeed start the riots, but we can take advantage of it." Su Yuehua continued. "The main purpose of the rioters is to spread their influence and increase the range of the riot to catch the attention of our army. But they're underestimating Luo Yu's solidarity. If I'm not wrong, the Union Army might launch their full-scale attack in an hour." Yi Xing nodded. "Sister Yuehua is right. Let Fang Wei and Fang Wei send all these rioters to dig mines and confiscate their wealth." Yi Xing, wouldn't then people start protesting about human rights? Yu Miaodan said worriedly. Yi Xing sneered. "Luo Yu only respects human rights for those who respect it back. The rest can fuck off. If they don't like it, they can fight. Luo Yu does not fear any war." "Okay, I like your personality. If they don't like it, then fight." "Ha ha ha dash," Su Ping laughed. Yi Xing got up and said, "The war is about to start soon. Su Yuehua is right. This is an opportunity. I think it's time to test our mini-missiles." Orders were sent out. When Luo Yu's ground forces, Vice Commanders Guiqi and Li Sandow received their orders, they prepared for the maximum scale release of the mini-missiles. The commander of the Air Forces, Sherman, was also ready. His mission was that when the Union Army's air forces were paralyzed, he would immediately start bombing the enemy's ground forces. With Luo Yu's strong interference machine, he didn't need to worry about anti-air missiles. The Navy commander Huang Yunian also took 2 fleets and secretly left Luo Yu. Although they would be seen by the U.S. satellite 1 hour later, it wouldn't matter then. In the commander center, Wales had just received news of the riots in Luo Yu and had a contemptuous smile. He knew it was time to land. "All forces get ready. We will launch the final attack on Luo Yu together. Luo Yu's missiles have been used up. The following battle will be our big moment. Go. I want you to wait for me at Luo Yu's government building." After Wales' orders were sent out, the news immediately spread all around the world. Everyone's eyes were set on the battle. The jets and the long fleets roared and charged at Luo Yu. If that wasn't shocking enough, then the scene of a few 100K ground forces attacking the Shitin Valley was even more terrifying. Chapter 677, The Killing Blow. Chapter 677, the killing blow as Wales stood on the top deck of the mothership and looked over the dense flock of planes and ships rushing to Luoyu through his telescope. He couldn't help but raise his lips. The advisors stood beside him, and although they didn't talk, from their eyes it was easy to tell that they really admired their commander. At the start of the war, no one had the same amount of courage as Wales. He went against everyone's suggestions and ordered the creation of large sums of fake planes and ships. This cost tens to almost $100 billion alone. And then there was his order for 5 groups of F-22s to attack Luoyu. No one else would have dared do that. Wales knew that he had sent those people to their deaths. And if the American citizens knew about his plan, they would call him the greatest of criminals. But he had succeeded. You only had to look at how Luoyu hadn't shot a single missile anymore to know that Wales was right. He had depleted Luoyu's missiles, and now the Union Army was getting closer and closer to Luoyu. As long as they occupied the shores, then no matter how high-tech Luoyu's defenses were, they would lose for sure. Wales looked back towards his subordinates and enjoyed the admiration they felt for him. He could already picture himself standing on the top of Luoyu's main governmental building with the whole world cheering for him. The American citizens would greet him as a hero, and perhaps he would even be the next president. Wales commented calmly, "Men, perhaps in a few hours we will be having champagne in Luoyu's governmental building." But Wales then felt very strange as he didn't see any joy on his advisors, which was very abnormal. Instead, he saw horror and worry. Suddenly, countless rumbles sounded. Wales subconsciously looked back, and his face became pale. The Indian Ocean was filled with missiles which seemed to have grown eyes as they struck all their ships accurately. Only a rare few would fall into the ocean. Most of the missiles went on to create huge explosions. Their interception missiles were useless against these mini-missiles, and even if they had been effective, it would be a joke to try to use them to take care of all those small missiles. Mini-missiles? Were there even such small missiles in this world? Rumble, rumble. As Wales finally woke up from his panic, he felt the mothership he was on vibrate. A few of those mini-missiles had landed on the runway, and a football field-sized hole was blown onto the mothership. At the same time, some jets that hadn't taken flight turned into a gust of flame. Wales froze again at the seemingly countless mini-missiles as they flew into the fleet, creating one huge explosion after another. Wales looked into the sky above the Indian Ocean, and the dense group of jets had also become very scattered in a very short time. Jets were constantly falling into the ocean. No. Wales' mind went blank. He spat out blood and roared. Soon, he realized that this was Luoyu's killing blow. They had actually created such small missiles which were very fast and accurate. If these missiles could be mass-produced, then the U.S. was over, the U.S. fleet was over, and this Union Army was over. Wales' heart went cold, and he fell unconscious. He couldn't accept the shock of such an utter defeat right after the light of victory had shone on him a few moments earlier. He would become a historical sinner of the U.S. When Wales went unconscious, his advisors quickly came to resuscitate him, and after a while he finally woke up again. The first thing Wales did was to grab the telescope. The sky had become black, and there was a burning smell everywhere. Pieces of jets and ships were also flying all over the place. The fighter jets were decreasing in number more and more, and one could only see an occasional few jets run for their lives, but a mini-missile would quickly chase up and bring it to the sea. Meanwhile, the missiles the Union Army shot out were all struck down. Most fell without hitting anything due to the interference. His fleet couldn't counterattack at all. Suddenly, he felt the mothership below him shake. He shivered and thought, "We have to retreat. Retreat immediately. General Wales, you should go down immediately. This tower could be shot down any moment now." An advisor wanted to pull Wales down. Wales pulled him aside and asked, "How are our losses?" "No time for that. We need to retreat immediately. He had been to many wars, but never had he fought a war like today. "We've lost 61 battleships, 2 motherships, 900 fighter jets, 800 helicopters, and we haven't calculated soldier casualties yet. Many returning, jets don't have anywhere to land, as many carrier ships can't accommodate landing anymore. Wales almost fainted again after that report. How little time had passed, yet the Union Army had lost almost half its power. If that went on for a few more hours, they would lose everything for sure. Wales was bleeding in his heart. He was over, completely done for, but before he died, he needed to bring back the remaining army. Retreat, retreat immediately. Wales called the shot. The army had already started to retreat, even without his order, though. They knew this wasn't war anymore. This was suicide. Rumble, the Indian Ocean had turned into an area of explosions and smoke. Countless screams on the ocean made people feel the cruelty of war. Amidst all the chaos were Luo Yu's mini-missiles, falling like an endless hail. When the neutral countries and all the media's ships saw this and smelled the smoke and fire, they were forced to realize that it was all real. Half an hour earlier, Luo Yu had been a goat waiting to be slaughtered, yet now they had bared their fangs and taken out an astounding trump card. They had created grenade-sized missiles that were effective at long range and very accurate. Looking at the flock of locust-like missiles, everyone knew that the Union Army was over. For days earlier, Wales' money-burning tactic had been approved of by many specialists, and they all felt the tactic would be perfect for Luo Yu. Yet 4 days later, when Luo Yu used their locust missiles, the whole world was shocked. Those neutral countries and media ships felt very cold. Everyone knew that Luo Yu was strong, but no one expected them to be this strong. The last time the Union Army invaded, they had completely decimated them with their imported missiles and interference machine. Not much time had passed since then, yet they had made these mini-missiles that could annihilate any army. Just when Wales' fleet exited the missile range, tens of Luo Yu ships suddenly appeared in front of them. Their radars hadn't picked up on them at all. Chapter 678. Similar results. Chapter 678. Similar results when Wales saw those horrendous mini-missiles fall on the same ship and Luo Yu's jets fly across the sky. He knew that Luo Yu was forcing them to surrender. If they didn't, then they wouldn't be just showing off anymore. Those locust missiles would swarm them once again. Although Wales knew that he could still give it his all and sink about half of Luo Yu's ships, he also knew that if he did, no one in his army would be able to survive. Hence, Wales surrendered. Meanwhile, when the commander of the Union's ground forces had received orders to launch the final attack, he immediately attacked Shiten Valley. When he saw the thousands of fighter jets fly over Luo Yu, he was confident that they would soon come to give him support. However, reality was harsh. Before those fighter jets even came to Luo Yu, they were taken care of by the dense swarm of mini-missiles and were all struck down. Looking at the countless jets getting bombed to the ground in an instant, all the Union soldiers were shocked. What kind of war was this? Were Luo Yu's missiles this accurate? Once their air forces were erased, no matter how many soldiers there were, it would be pointless. Luo Yu only needed to drop bombs above their heads, and they would all get slaughtered. Before Shan could react, countless missiles struck his tanks and armored vehicles with great accuracy. As rumbles and explosions sounded, Luo Yu's jets also flew over. Shan was shaking. He didn't think that Luo Yu's weapons would be strong to such an extent. Retreat. Shan didn't care about any orders, and even if Wales wanted to attack, he was going to retreat. But Luo Yu's jets weren't just randomly throwing bombs around. They were focusing their fire on the troops' retreat path and pushing them into the Shiten Valley. 300,000 Union ground forces were being compressed into the small Shiten Valley, and anti-air missiles were useless under the interference of the interference machine. The cannons could only strike a plane occasionally. Shan knew that Luo Yu was forcing them to surrender. Although he really didn't want to surrender to a small place like Luo Yu, he knew that if Luo Yu lost their patience, all 300,000 soldiers might be killed. Hence, Sean also surrendered. He didn't have any choice. Looking at his soldiers drop their weapons dejectedly, Sean was bleeding in his heart. Luo Yu and the Union's second war had ended, and the difference between the second war and the first one was that this second war had gone on for 4 days. The results, however, were the same. This time, Luo Yu had brought down 109 ships, 600 jets, 400 helicopters, and countless tanks and armored vehicles. They also captured 50 ships for carrier ships, 200 fighter jets, 150 helicopters, 2,000 tanks and armored vehicles, as well as 360,000 soldiers. Meanwhile, Luo Yu's losses amounted to 17 fighter jets, 32 tanks, and 200 soldiers. It was of course impossible for such a glorious victory to not catch the attention of the world. And at the same time as Luo Yu defeated the Union Army, it took over the Jason Giambi Island again. On top of that, because the U.S. had invaded Luo Yu twice through the Malacca Strait, Luo Yu requested the U.S. to pull out their troops stationed there. Because the Southeast Asian countries allowed the U.S. to invade Luo Yu through the Malacca Strait twice, Luo Yu was very unhappy with them as well and wanted them to give an appropriate resolution. Everyone could tell that the U.S. didn't have to go through the Malacca Strait to invade Luo Yu. They could also simply come from the Atlantic Ocean. It was clear that Luo Yu just wanted the Malacca Strait, but no one in Southeast Asia could say anything about it. At the moment, the whole world was shocked by Wales' supposedly assured victory tactic failing, and failing so utterly at that. Many military specialists had believed that Wales' tactic was the most effective tactic against Luo Yu, but they were once again thwarted by Luo Yu's technology. In the wake of absolute power, any tactic was useless. Luo Yu had shaken the world too much already, and so they were at last properly recognized as an international power. They could produce their own weapons and annihilate the armies of other countries. It was only at this moment that everyone remembered what Shi Kulong Air had said, and he had proven himself right. He published a second article after the war titled, "The New Era of Warfare. Air Force is a Thing of the Past," which was published all over the world, and many popular TV channels invited him for an interview. The article said that in the era of the new mini-missiles and interference machines, air forces were just target practice because of their low defenses and how easy of a target they were. Yi Xing looked at the article in contempt and sneered. According to Yi Xing, the opposite was actually true. Air Force was not a thing of the past. Its era was in fact just about to begin. Luo Yu's current interference machine and mini-missiles would soon be taken over by Luo Yu's first generation of battle jets. When interference systems and radar systems and missiles and anti-missiles reached a counterbalance, the world would still rely on Air Force. The reason why Luo Yu was so dominant was because Yi Xing's inventions were beyond the era, but as time went by, the differences would decrease. When these differences were no longer noticeable, what dominated the battlefield would still be the air forces. Back on the cruiser, Sister Yen had quickly brought over all her stuff to Yimo's room. "Help me bring my bed, too. I don't want you to do dodgy things behind my back." Sister Yen, for some reason, just instinctively felt that Yi Mo was lying. Yi Mo had 2 rooms in his apartment, so she had made the request to stay at his place. If Yi Mo had already read her diary, then she wouldn't care anymore, but since he hadn't yet, she didn't want to let him read it now. She wasn't prepared. Yi Mo looked at Sister Yen speechlessly. "Sister Yen, I won't be sleeping these next couple of nights as I need to make some things, so you can sleep in my bed." Hearing this, Sister Yen stared right at Yi Mo as though trying to see through his lies. "Are you planning on waiting for me to fall asleep and then crawl into the bed? You need to make things, huh? Who are you trying to trick?" Sister Yen said. Chapter 679. Face Slapping Provocation. Chapter 679. Face Slapping Provocation. Sister Yen, I really need to take care of things. You can watch me on the side, but you can't disturb me. If you do, my chi will react and hurt me. Yi Mo was quite close with Sister Yen, so he didn't plan on hiding it from her. When he finished making the flying sword, he would take her out of there. After all, he had been staying on the ship for too long. However, the chi going wrong part was fake. He just didn't want her to disturb him. Are you for real? Is it that serious? Sister Yen looked at Yi Mo in disbelief. Yi Mo nodded. Sister Yen, you've taken the pill I made. What do you think of the face-preserving pill I gave you? It's really good, isn't it? And about the chi-increasing pill, just look at the fact that you reached yellow level middle stage. You know that I didn't lie to you. You can see my power? Sister Yen looked at Yi Mo in confusion. The pills Yi Mo had given her were absurdly powerful. The face-preserving pill turned her back to a young girl, and the chi-increasing pill helped her go from below yellow level to yellow level middle stage. Now, she started to believe Yi Mo's words. Thinking about this, she got up. How about I go outside and you can call me when you're done? If I did interrupt you, I would really regret it. Yi Mo felt a little touched and smiled. Sister Yen, you only need to keep quiet. It is fine. Sister Yen nodded after hesitating for a while. She really wanted to see what Yi Mo was making. Yi Mo took out a chi-increasing pill. He gave it to Sister Yen and said, although you're at yellow level middle stage, you like running around too much. I feel your power is too low. I got this book from an old nun. It should be a decent ancient martial arts cultivation method. Have a look. Forging artifacts is very boring, but you can watch if you want. The book didn't have a cover. It was the cultivation method of the Ci Hangjing Temple. It shouldn't be bad. Seeing Sister Yen accept these things, Yi Mo could rest assured. He started to refine his flying sword. It had been a few days after the war, but the incident wasn't over yet. Luo Yu had forced the Union Army to retreat with dominating power. The moment that the war ended, Luo Yu didn't talk about war. Instead, they announced that Luo Yu's new intercontinental missiles were ready. They had Luo Yu's strongest interference system on them. On that same day, they tested these missiles on a deserted island in Antarctica. These new missiles accurately sunk the entire island. This was pure cockiness. Although Luo Yu hadn't detonated a nuke, they had still turned the island into nothing. Luo Yu's actions were like a slap in the U.S. government's face. It was so bad that, theoretically, they should urge for a third invasion. But this time, the U.S. stayed silent. The U.S. reaction finally let everyone know that Luo Yu wasn't a country easy to mess with. If even the U.S. ignored it, no other country would dare make any comment about it. After realizing that they had lost their entire army again, the U.S. president almost flipped the White House. When he heard that the first thing Luo Yu had done was launch an intercontinental missile to the Antarctica, he was so angry that he wanted to declare a third war. But he didn't dare do anything. He still had common sense. He knew that last missiles had been to provoke the U.S., but he couldn't do anything about it. Not only that, but he also feared them. Luo Yu was too powerful. Their technology was the world's most advanced. An intercontinental missile was nothing. Many countries had it, and their own could reach anywhere in the world. But Luo Yu's missiles were different to other countries. Other ones could be intercepted, but Luo Yu's radar system and interference system was so powerful that no country had the ability to intercept it. The president could also imagine that if Luo Yu got too angry and launched countless of these new missiles at them, the U.S. would experience massive collateral damages. So he knew now wasn't the time to condemn Luo Yu, but the time to think about how to resolve issues. The president knew from the last war that if Luo Yu didn't get any benefit out of it, they would be merciless. Although they held daily conferences at the Union, they had no way to calm Luo Yu's anger. What worried them the most was Luo Yu had sunk a deserted island right afterwards. Their intentions were clear. If Luo Yu wasn't happy, then their next missile wouldn't be sent to a deserted place. The second day, Su Iwahua announced on live TV, "I hope that the Union is an organization that seeks keeping world peace, not one that looks for wars. I don't want people to use the Union as an excuse to invade other countries' land and rights. The World War I and World War II have already very harsh on the people. It seems like some people are restless if they don't cause World War III. Luoyu's rights are its people's. If any person or country wants to invade us, we won't tolerate it at all. We will fight until the end. We detest war, but we don't fear it either. If you want to invade us, if you want the Third World War to happen, then come." As a new government, we didn't understand the specifics of the Antarctica Treaty, so we're willing to compensate the Antarctica. But we don't want this to be used by bad-hearted people. Luoyu had just finished building infrastructures, yet it has been heavily damaged by the war. I'm very hurt to see the Union being used to disrupt peace and invade rights. Just as I said last time, the war has just begun. Many countries felt speechless after hearing this. Luoyu was heavily damaged by the war? Not a single missile had even touched Luoyu. Meanwhile, the Union Army had been decimated and hundreds of thousands of soldiers lost their lives there. Moreover, countless jets and ships had been sunk. Luoyu's words implied that if they weren't satisfied, they wouldn't mind starting World War III or the Third War with the Union. Although the Union was still holding meetings, those countries who had participated in Luoyu's invasion began to worry, especially those near Luoyu. Chapter 680, The Chasing Fishing Boat. Chapter 680, The Chasing Fishing Boat. Soon, a bunch of countries started communications with Luoyu in hopes of getting their forgiveness. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Luoyu was very easy to talk to and only asked them to pay 30 billion Luoyu dollars as compensation, and it would be fine. Although that was still a huge amount, Luoyu was willing to give them a loan. Moreover, to a country, 30 billion Luoyu dollars was an acceptable amount. Once one country paid it, the other countries too felt that this much was nothing. If Luoyu fired any missile onto their land, they would end up losing more than 30 billion. So what if all the countries in the world could join together to annihilate Luoyu? Their losses would be gone forever. Other than the US, almost all 30 countries which participated in the second invasion agreed to Luoyu's compensation plan. The Union didn't expect that while it was still coming up with a plan, most of the consequences of the war would have already been resolved through private negotiation. Seeing this, everyone knew that Luoyu wasn't really crazy and didn't really want a third world war. They just wanted money. As for the US, it was impossible to mediate anything with just some money. Its current president became another tragedy, as although he wasn't impeached by the people, he did have to resign after the second failed war. The U.S. had to cope with mass protests and riots once again. Some people disagreed with the second invasion of Luoyu, while others asked for a third one. Negotiations between Luoyu and the new U.S. president, President Darcy, soon began. Darcy didn't want to meddle around with the issue, as he had just come to power and wanted to recover the U.S. economy and its stability. So the two reached a consensus. The U.S. would compensate Luoyu 200 billion Luoyu dollars for the losses caused by the war, 50 billion Luoyu dollars for the negative impact it had on their civilians' mental health, and another 100 billion to get back all the captives. Altogether, the U.S. compensated Luoyu with 350 billion Luoyu dollars. With such a huge compensation, even if spread over multiple payments, the U.S. sunk into a huge economic downward spiral. Furthermore, the U.S. had actually lost much more than that. Their Pacific fleet had been crippled, and the losses to their ground and air forces were immeasurable. Although they could recover with time, the Pacific was a place where power mattered. Now that their Pacific fleet had been 80% destroyed in the war, the UK, France, and even Japan started advancing their fleets all over the Pacific. Perhaps this was America's biggest loss. Because of Luoyu's power, The Southeast Asian Alliance could do nothing about it either, and so Luo Yi started stationing power at the Malacca Strait. Sister Yin didn't feel that watching Yi Mo forge artifacts was boring at all. In fact, she was dazed by it. She didn't understand how Yi Mo could pull out a sword and colorful stone out of nowhere. Then suddenly, Yi Mo shot out fire from his palm, and the sword floated in the air. She cultivated ancient martial arts, sure, but what Yi Mo was doing now exceeded the limits of ancient martial arts. She really wanted to know what Yi Mo must have gone through, because he had gotten stronger, and thanks to the 5-element stone, Yi Mo managed to refine a damaged top-grade flying sword into an upper top-grade flying sword. Although it hadn't reached the extreme grade, that wasn't due to the materials, but due to the fact that Yi Mo wasn't a blacksmith and that his power was a little low. The flying sword made a crisp howl, and Yi Mo got up with satisfaction. "You dash, Sister Yen," said one word when Yi Mo suddenly pulled her behind him. Sister Yen was shook and also realized how hungry she was. She didn't even know how long she had been watching Yi Mo refine the weapon. The room darkened, and Yi Mo questioned, "Who are you?" Hearing this, Sister Yen realized that 2 more people had appeared in the room. If Yi Mo hadn't said anything, though, she wouldn't have noticed them at all, even though they were standing under the window. "You have no right to ask who we are. Did you take the 3 stones from Meng Kuei?" the tall and skinny person suddenly asked, his voice sounding very cold. Sister Yen subconsciously grabbed Yi Mo's clothes as she began to worry. She was already at the yellow level middle stage, yet she didn't even know when those 2 had come in. No wonder Yi Mo said she was too weak. Yi Mo spread his spirit sense out and saw that one of them was East Asian, while the other guy was white. One of them was also a mutant. Based on the energy waves, he was at least a level 3 mutant. But level 3 was way too puny in front of Yi Mo, who didn't understand how they had come chasing him so quickly. As Yi Mo spread his spirit sense out even further, he didn't find Meng Kuei. It seemed the man was dead. Soon, Yi Mo found a small fishing boat on the side of the cruiser, and he figured they must have come from there. A white stone suddenly appeared in Yi Mo's hand as he asked, "Do you mean this stone?" "How many did you take?" the black shadowy figure went on to ask, and a gun appeared in its hand. Sister Yen saw the gun under the moonlight and nervously pulled Yi Mo back, saying, "They have guns." Yi Mo patted her, signaling her to not worry, and replied to the men, "I took 3, and I have quite a few more of these myself, you know." Hearing this, the man put his hand back down. Yi Mo sneered. If it wasn't for him wanting to find out how they knew about the spirit stones, he would have already killed them both. "Where did you get the extra stones?" "AMD, where are they now?" the tall, skinny man asked. "I'm a businessman, so if you take me to see your boss, perhaps I will trade them with him," Yi Mo said. Yi Mo being so calm made the 2 suspicious. They didn't know what the reason for Yi Mo staying so calm was, but it was better for them to take him to their boss for now. "Okay, follow us," the 2 men opened the door and said. The reason why Yi Mo didn't just kill the 2 and go to their boss himself was because he didn't want to alert him. Sister Yen wanted to attack, seeing that the 2 were going to take Yi Mo away, but Yi Mo signaled her not to worry. Sister Yen seemed to understand what Yi Mo was doing, and she had seen Yi Mo's means, so she believed that he had a reason for playing along. Yi Mo gave her a bracelet and said, "Wear this, I will be back soon." Although she was really very hungry, she wasn't really of the mind to go eat anything after seeing Yi Mo get taken away by 2 strangers. The cruiser, having let those people come up from the fishing boat, meant that they were connected. But Yi Mo wasn't worried about Sister Yen. He had scanned the entire ship, and there was no one who could threaten her. When Yi Mo came to the fishing boat, he realized that it wasn't a mere fishing boat, but a modified one for military use. There were about 30 to 40 people on board, all armed with guns. The 2 took Yi Mo to a simple room where they pointed at Yi Mo and said, "The thing is on him, we saw it. However, he says he still has a lot of them and wants to do business, so I brought him over." Then, the two positioned themselves by the door to block Yumo's exit path. There were 4 people in the room, and when the yellow-skinned middle-aged man among them heard this, he laughed. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.